Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Icehogs back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Carrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the Mile High City of Denver, Colorado. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 63 for Friday, November 19th, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tips on how to reach the County of Los Angeles Agricultural Commissioner Weights and Measures Department, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is Cece Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey, flying solo tonight in hosting the program, but not for long. We've got a handful of guests, literally 5 guests tonight. That is a Calder Farmstead record. And with all of that in mind, thank you for tuning in with us. Got to start off with some gratefulness for sure. Well, hey, if you're new to hearing us about talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the matchups for the weekend, the upcoming weekend for you. We watch a lot of AHL games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It is a short primer on some stats we're going to be talking about, and we have been talking about as we've had this podcast going, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the points shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you'll be able to better pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes marveling over how well Sebastian Stan pulled off looking so much like Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee on social media today. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey? All right. Well, first and foremost, we have got a guest of the program. He hasn't been on in a while, but he is no stranger to the program. I traded one Penn State alum for another. Sean and this guy both went to Penn State University. So he writes for the Hershey Bears Hockey Nation blog, and he's been doing that for a very long time. So he is very familiar with the team. He is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He was just telling me before the show, he lives about 8 minutes from the Giants Center. So that's pretty good. Reminds me of when I lived about 10 minutes from what used to be now it's the Idaho Central Arena in downtown Boise. But I digress. Let me bring him on in here. Corey Swartz. Corey, welcome back to the program, bud.
Hey, Cece, I'm good. How are you?
Doing very good. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. So thanks for coming on the show. I know you got the Flyers game going on right now. So that's kept you occupied while you're in the green room, and we were recording some other segments as well. So again, thanks for your patience, and thanks for coming on the show to talk the Hershey Bears.
Absolutely. Anytime. The Flyers are up 2-0 right now. What could possibly go wrong? They're playing Tampa Bay. So, you know.
Well, let's go to the AHL, and hopefully things don't, the wheels don't fall off in the Flyers game while we're doing this program. But anyway, let's talk about the weekend ahead for the Hershey Bears. So they've got a series at Hartford on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and versus Charlotte, hosting the Charlotte Checkers Sunday at 5 p.m. So a big keynote here, both Hartford and Charlotte are carrying 3-game win streaks into the weekend. So the Hershey Bears are going to be facing a couple of, it's fair to say that they're hot.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing that is going into is both teams are, teams that the Bears are now chasing in the standings as a result of how things have been recently. I believe Charlotte just officially passed them. I think they're about even in points percentage at the moment, but officially they have more regulation wins. So they passed Hershey. Hartford is, I believe, 6 points up on the Bears at this point. And it's going to be a good challenge for them, I think. Personnel moves aside, which we're waiting to see. Hope maybe we can get a little bit of reinforcements from Washington. But, it's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, the Bears are, I haven't seen Hartford at all this season, but, they have one of the highest goals for, I think, in across the AHL. I think if I remember right, it was 3rd overall in the league. So, you're going to have to hope defense shows up well, and, you're going to have to play them tight, and it's going to be a good challenge for them, I think.
Yeah, and I think going to Sean's analytics models that he puts so much diligent work into, you look at Hershey and their PDO is 97.57. Their shooting percentage is about 8%. Their save percentage for their goaltenders is 89.57. So they're due for some luck. The closer you get to 100, the more kind of equilibrium you establish. So Hershey's due for some luck for sure. And, the Charlotte Checkers are 102.62. So they're getting some lucky shooting percentages. I know the save percentage is about 90.7, 90.74. So that's, about, I want to say, that shooting percentage is a little high. They're due to come back down to earth. And Hartford, I can't quite see in this graph here. Hartford is 103.16. So both Hartford and Charlotte riding, at least a short track on the PDO train there. So Hershey is definitely due for some puck luck, as it were. But let's talk big picture here. Let's talk about the team as a whole for the Hershey Bears. So many players, as you alluded to, called up during the weekend set at Syracuse and versus Charlotte last weekend. Hung in there for a 5-4 shootout win against the Crunch. And then they started off with the first goal and then 5 unanswered goals for Charlotte on that Sunday. Like we mentioned on the previous episode, Sean and I, the first 15 minutes were strong from the Hershey Bears against Charlotte, but then they just got outplayed by a team who, quite bluntly, have their roster intact and also have the benefit of having Seattle prospects and having Florida Panthers prospects. So they're utilizing that and making use of that quite well. But yeah, I mean, the guys that have either been out because of call-up or injuries, you're talking Cody Franson, you're talking Mike Vecchione, Brian Pino, Axel Johnson-Falby, Zach Fucale, who I think got his first NHL victory the other night. Yeah, kind of big news there. Protas, Leeson, all of them out. And now Garrett Pilon. Garrett Pilon has also been called up to the Capitals as well. Cody, I'll shut up and let you talk because that's just a lot of team movement. And, as well as I do, when an AHL team is pulling players off of the AHL club, it's happening here in Colorado with the Avalanche and the Eagles, chemistry and a lot of bottom 6 guys being thrust into top 6 positions. There's going to be some issues there, and there's probably going to be some games lost, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been the big issue is that, it's when it started with Washington, it was, Nicholas Backstrom was out to start the season. And so that, as a result, meant we weren't likely going to see Connor McMichael come down to Hershey, which was a huge blow to, before the season even began. We haven't seen him. And, he's great. He's been playing great up there. They really like him up there. He's obviously, I think he has 6 points so far this season. All things considered, he's doing quite well. And, will we see him, period, if it's not, extra experience in the playoffs? If Washington gets eliminated, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. But we'll see. And it seems like Washington's coming back to health a little bit. I know there was rumors that TJ Oshie and Nick Dowd obviously took part in practice and, are on the mend type of thing. But like you said, there's nothing worse than losing your top scorer in Garrett Pilon. And good for him. He scored in his first game, his first NHL goal while I was asleep, of course. Really happy for him. He's a guy that absolutely deserves it, in my opinion.
Right.
All the guys that got called up have been phenomenal. And, they've really done a good job. I mean, I was seeing a lot of folks noting that the, younger players for Washington have not only, chipped in on scoring, but they've been very solid defensively too. Their commitment to defense is, very much a staple of how Hershey plays their game, in so many respects. So it was really good to see them, thriving. I think most everybody except for, I think, Alexei Protas, has at least a point so far in their stints up top there. So really happy to see them all succeeding and doing well. And, so for other guys like Martin Faravari, he's been fantastic up there so far. And, you still can't say enough about Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov. A couple of years removed from them being Hershey's tandem,
Right.
now Washington's tandem, and, really coming through. And I think Washington's learning that, the kids are pretty good down here. So it's, it's a good eye-opening experience, but it certainly hurts, like you said, the Bears team chemistry. Like you said, in the Syracuse game, we got a little bit more scoring from, guys like the Beck Malinsteins. Brian Domowski scored a goal, back-to-back goals in the second period, but those have been hard to come by. And, like you said, the total amount, just that plus injuries, it's really amounted to a very different roster than we saw on opening night, here only a month into the season. So it's been a bit of a challenge here, and, it's hard. It's hard. You hardly ever see that much talent out at once. So, I mean, at this point, we're just going to have to wait and see and, hopefully have Zach Fucale back in net, like you said, and he's going to be a big piece, and, hope that we can get somebody off the injured list in time for the game tomorrow. So waiting to see what's going to happen with that.
Right. I mean, you can only sign so many ECHL players or call up guys from South Carolina. Get the hell up here to Hershey, Pennsylvania, quick. Oh, man. Well, I mean, you mentioned, you mentioned Malinstein stepping up this past weekend. Joe Snively is another big name, of course. Garrett Pilon, all stepping up this weekend. Sean and I did bring up on the other side of the coin, all of these guys doing well. Feels like half of them are on the team for this weekend, this coming weekend, I should say. Well, and last weekend too. But, Sean was really astute in bringing up Dylan McElrath and his kind of penalty kill liability about Charlotte last week. Did you notice that on the ice?
At times, yes. And the penalty kill, I haven't really had too many qualms with it. I think that last Sunday's game was a really bad example to pull from because they got scored on 4 times on the power play. And
yeah, that's fair.
For Charlotte, it was a crazy number when I was looking into it for some of my research here recently. They have 9 power play goals all season, and 4 of them were against Hershey in one game. So it's not, it's one of those games that you just like to, wipe off the slate, when you're doing the statistics. If you could just eliminate that game, it would be just wonderful. And, there were times where, in recent times at least, where penalties have been a problem for Hershey. And, some of it's things you can control. I'd like to say there's some things that are out of their control a little bit, just from what I've seen the last couple of games. If you follow my blog, Bears Hockey Nation, over on Twitter, I've been a little bit vocal about, some of the officiating here of late, but you can't lay it all at their feet, of course, too. You had to be able to kill off the penalties. And, Hershey, by and large, over the last couple of years has been their bread and butter. But, the Charlotte game was a bit of a bad example for it overall, in my opinion. But there are a lot of times where I would see, some things that Dylan McElrath will do. And I was like, I think that Sean's probably, tearing his hair out in frustration, because I know it was a big topic we discussed a little bit before the season started too.
Yeah, we did. And don't want to take out my microphone here. Sorry about that. I'm Italian, so my hand movements can sometimes bump the mic screen here. But yeah, it's it's not that like, okay, so Hershey, as we know, the best team regular season in the AHL last year. And now, you're looking at, just with all these injuries, all these call-ups and everything like that. Your rotating cast is also different in net as well. I mean, you've got Phoenix Copley having some time, Hunter Shepard coming up from South Carolina, of course, Zach Fucale. I mean, who do you think is going to start these games against Hartford and Charlotte? I almost said Chicago, Hartford and Charlotte this weekend.
It's a good question, honestly, because I mean, in recent time, you would say obviously Zach Fucale. I mean, he pitched a shutout in his NHL debut, and his numbers have been just phenomenal since he's been with the Bears here recently. Over this year and last, and I give Hunter Shepard a lot of credit. I wouldn't put last Sunday's loss at his feet at all. A lot of the goals were deflections. A lot of stuff that, you can't really blame the kid on. And he was 3-0 last year when he was, in brief stint with Hershey. with some call-ups at the end of the season. So, for all intents and purposes, I would love to see Shepherd get another shot at it eventually here, just since I think he's, got a lot of potential too. And the Capitals believe that too, signing him to a 2-year deal in the offseason last year. But honestly, it's been a simple rotation. It's not been too hard to guess when both Copley and Fucale are both here. You can kind of guess that, it's going to be Copley and then Fucale, and then the next week it's going to be Copley and Fucale again. I think they have the same level of confidence in Bears coach Scott Allen's, alluded to it a couple times. We have 2 number 1 goalies, is what he said a lot of times. So, he said, we have every confidence we can throw anybody in net and we'll be fine. That's sort of been the mindset here recently. You have to think with the Hartford game, do the numbers come into play at all there that you want to, put your best foot forward and stopping him? And, if you had to say, it would probably be Zach Fucale would get that opportunity there if that's the case. But it's a simple rotation. So, I would expect to see either of them. It's been disrupted a little bit since Fucale has been away. So it could be either of them at this point, but, I think they have the same amount of confidence in either of them throwing them in there.
Let me pivot real quick. I'm going to go with the other side of the coin here and talk a little bit about Hartford and Charlotte. I know that this is going to be Hershey and Hartford's first meeting of the season, so there's not a whole lot of breakdown that you can do in regards to how the Bears have done against the Wolfpack, because they haven't played this season. So you don't know. And they sure as hell didn't play at all last season. So, I mean, you have no sample to pull from because the rosters are completely different than they were 2 years ago. But I digress. Let's start. Again, both teams carrying 3 straight wins into the weekend. Columbus defeated Wilkes-Barre Scranton, Hershey, and Lehigh Valley. Not super impressive, especially Wilkes-Barre Scranton coming back down to earth and Lehigh Valley being one of the worst teams in the league, unfortunately. But they do have that Hershey win in there. Hartford has defeated Springfield, one of the best teams in the AHL currently. Providence, who's always brings a competitive team to the table, and Bridgeport, who is probably about on par with Lehigh Valley in regards to quality of win in regards to that. But like I said, first time Hershey and Hartford are meeting this season. Hartford fell down against Bridgeport 3-1 on Wednesday. They scored 3 straight in the second period to win 4-3. Charlotte also scored 3 in the second. They let Lehigh Valley back in the game with 3 goals in the third period. Connor Carrick had to save their buns, scoring a goal in the final 2 minutes to lift Charlotte to a 4-3 victory. If I say Columbus, forgive me, because CLT, that abbreviation, is screwing with my head. So if I say Columbus, I mean Charlotte, folks. Charlotte also has 2 shorthanded goals. You want to talk about that big special teams game that they had against the Hershey Bears. They also had another one there against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. 2 shorthanded goals and that power play goal on the Carrick game-winning goal. Charlotte's 4th on the power play, 23.9% conversion rate, tied for first with shorthanded goals with 5. Big surprise there. But I mean, aside from the special teams, and kind of those 2 games where they really showed out, I mean, Hershey's special teams isn't super impressive from what I'm looking at here. They've got, they've got now I lost it. Okay, 21st in the league on the penalty kill, 78.7%. They are tied with, looks like, Henderson for that penalty kill rate. And then, 18th in the league on the power play, 18.8%. So let's focus special teams wise. I mean, what do you think they bring to the table against Hartford, against Charlotte? Just based on their special teams, Hershey special teams alone.
Well, I'd like to see the Bears get a breakthrough on the power play against Hartford. I saw that was one of their weaker elements there. I think they're, I guess I know Hartford's stronger on the penalty kill than they are on the power play, but I'd like to see the Bears get some success on the power play. They got, their power play quarterback, Bobby Nardella, back. I believe he's been here for a couple of games now. After not having him at all last season, which was a tremendous loss. He was over in Sweden for the entire season and got injured at the end of it, of all things. And so he came back to Hershey but didn't play. And so we really missed him. But, Cody Franson was a great power play quarterback. It essentially worked out that, Franson got hurt and then Nardella came back in. And, they've essentially been going with Nardella on the top power play unit. But having a hard time finding some cohesion on the power play so far. Beginning of the season, they looked really good with it. They've had a few different looks. It's kind of been a sore spot a little bit recently where they just had a hard time getting set up and really, when they get set up, they're able to generate some looks. But, if anyone gets a hard time in Hershey, it's definitely the power play for sure. So, we want to see them get some success here. And, having Nardella back, we like to see, Franson and Pilon and, basically be at full strength with a lot of looks. I mean, beginning of the season, they were churning out power play goals pretty frequently, and it kind of dried up a little bit. And you were even getting some depth guys in there. Like you were able to get Cody Clark was a net front guy. He scored on opening night, I think, for his first goal of the season on the power play, which was very nice to see. But, it's one of those things. I think with Hartford, they're such a high scoring team. I mean, they have, I think at least 8 skaters with 3 or more goals this season so far. So, they can get a lot of offense in a lot of places, and you don't really want to get into a run and gun game with them like the Bears did with Syracuse last week. And to an extent, with Charlotte, they just kind of, got buried by some of their offense type of thing. And the big thing is the Bears have been losing a lot of games recently in the second period. The game, I believe it was week before last when they hosted Lehigh Valley, they got burned twice, shorthanded on the same power play within seconds of each other. For shorthanded goals, and it buried them. They got it together and they played well the rest of the game, but couldn't find any goals. It was 4-1. It stayed 4-1 type of thing. Right. So, really would like to see them, start to win those special teams battles a little bit more so here recently. So, that's what I'm looking for. Hopefully they get a few more power play opportunities. I think they've probably been, killing about twice as much as they've been getting on power plays, and it messes with your momentum. I mean, last Sunday in Charlotte, they had 7 penalties. I should say Charlotte had 7 power play opportunities, and that's just hard to generate, momentum, offensive flow, all those little things when you're, stuck penalty killing for the entire time. And missing Brian Pino has been huge for that too. I mean, he's one of those guys you can put anywhere, I think, and he's going to improve your team, frankly.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh no. And, especially in the late game situations where you really don't want to give up a goal, he's incredible. I mean, he's just a blast to watch. There was one game early in the season. I think it was against Lehigh Valley where they won 2-1 and they were down 6-on-3 for like the entire last minute of the game and change, I think. And, you knew Brian Pino was going to be that guy that was out there for that situation. He was great. I mean, you can't say enough about how much losing him impacts the team.
Yeah, and as Sean is a big proponent, the hashtag free Brian Pino by advocating for him to be on the first power play unit for the Hershey Bears. So hopefully when he does come back, the Bears decide to free Brian Pino. We'll see if Scott Allen will take Sean's advice. If not directly, then through the good vibes of the universe that Sean's putting out there for Brian Pino. But let me talk a little bit about the players for Hartford and Charlotte real quick. So Morgan Barron, obviously very bullish on him, showing how much of a good prospect he is for the New York Rangers. 4 points in 3 games. Same with Johnny Brodzinski. Feels like, a lot of skaters are stepping up where others aren't as contributing as much. If a group of skaters is getting hot and they cool down, another group is up to, kind of help with that workload, as it were. So rookie skater wise, Zach Jones in the top 20 amongst rookies for points. He is tied for 3rd amongst rookie defensemen for points, leads Hartford's defensive core in both points and assists, which is pretty impressive for a rookie. He has recorded 1 goal and 7 assists in 14 games played. Pivot over to Charlotte. And I know we mentioned this last episode, but Scott Wilson, he's piecing together many good, smaller, high IQ veteran plays that, if you look pretty carefully, he's contributing on the micro levels where you'd want a veteran to contribute. Cale Fleury, he's got just 1 assist, but or this 1 assist this past weekend, but he was involved big time to help tilt the ice in Charlotte's favor on the offensive side of the puck, even though he didn't show up, but once on the score sheet. Chris Gibson in net, not only with a standout effort, but, showing off his inner Marty Brodeur. He was facilitating and matriculating the puck down the ice. He got an assist and he knew where to pass that puck. He even faked 3 guys out last weekend. I mean, it was pretty impressive when you have a goaltender, especially in the trapezoid age, that can pass the puck around and really, look for the guy down the ice. It's kind of crazy, but those are 3 guys from Charlotte that stuck out with me. And you mentioned a number of guys from Hartford as well, but from the Checkers, from the games that you've seen Charlotte and Hershey play this season, has any other players aside from those ones that I mentioned, any other players stand out to you, Corey?
Well, one of the guys for Hartford that I saw, I actually did not realize that Hartford had, that I have a feeling is going to factor in on Saturday's game, is Anthony Greco. He is a guy who, anytime when he was with Springfield most recently, anytime that the Bears played him, you could almost guarantee that he was going to get something. He's one of those guys where he loves playing against the Bears, I think. He's had a lot of success over the years. And he's already doing really well over with Hartford. I think he's their second leading scorer. I think has 4 goals and a handful of assists. I can't remember what the exact number is. I want to say he has 11 points overall.
I'll check for you.
But so he was the guy I saw. I'm like, oh boy, like that. Gotta watch him pretty closely here. He's been a tough guy for the Bears to stop over the years. But for Charlotte, I really like Alexander True. I mean, it seems simple. He's one of their top scorers, but he's great. I mean, he's so very noticeable, both ends of the ice. He makes great plays defensively, and the puck just follows him around. Like you wouldn't believe. When he scores and you see him turn and go celebrate, you're like, it's Alexander True. Who else would it be? Type of thing. He's already lit up the Bears a couple of times in their, I believe, 4 matchups, going on 5 this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of their season series is already playing out, actually. So he's the guy to watch for me. I mean, I'm always watching out for him to see what he's going to do next, because he's just phenomenal. I don't see how he gets doesn't get NHL attention here pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, Alexander True, one of the many forwards going through San Jose last year, and for the Seattle Kraken to pick him up in the expansion draft, to put him in Charlotte, leading the team in scoring with 13 points in 13 games, 6 goals, 7 assists. And you were correct. Good memory. Greco second on the team, Hartford, in scoring, 11 points in 14 games. That's 4 goals and 7 assists. And I'm impressed by your memory. Yeah, pulling that is off the top of your head, not too shabby at all, Corey. But let's finish it up here before we go to our picks for the weekend. What are the keys for Hershey? Give me 2 or 3 keys for the Bears this weekend to come out victorious over Hartford, Charlotte, or both.
For both games, I think it's start with strong defense and stay out of the box. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's been one of those things where Hershey's, gone into some, they played solid, I would say 30 or 40 minute efforts. And, there's just times where the game gets away from them a little bit. And, you want to see them really play strong defensively. And I guess another key to that would be play 60 minutes. It's been what I've been looking for a little while here too. You saw a game get away from them in Syracuse last week. They were able to, withstand it, deal with it and make it to a shootout where, they were able to win in a pretty good fashion there with a couple of, very strong shootout effort as far as you can get. Would really like to see them, get a couple of goals and hold a lead too. These are 2 really tough, high scoring opponents for Hershey that, I think that the only way to really come out of here successful in the situation the Bears are personnel wise is to, play outwards from defense, not necessarily make a long night for Phoenix Copley and Zach Fucale necessarily, but, try to limit their scoring opportunities and, capitalize on it where they can.
Yeah, and Hershey leading after 1 and leading after 2 periods, 3-1-1 leading after 1, 3-0-1 leading after 2. And even 2-1-1 tied after the first period, and 2-1-0 or 2-1-1 rather, again, tied after 2 periods. So yeah, if they're trailing after the first and second period, it doesn't bode well for the Bears, and being outshot by the opponent 2-3-2. But outshooting an opponent, they're 2-3-2. When they're outshot by the opponent, they're 4-1-1. Kind of a backward statistic there. So hopefully Charlotte and Hartford outshoot Hershey. I mean,
that's interesting. I actually didn't know that statistic, but
yeah,
I would imagine, hey, maybe, Bears feed off of their good goaltending. When Fucale's in net, you really don't have to worry about all that much. Him and Phoenix Copley have put up some really good efforts here so far this season. I'm baffled by that statistic, actually, because it's, you have seen games where the Bears would really pour on the shots in the first period. Maybe it would drop off a little bit, enough so that they would, be, still leading after the game. And you'd sort of be like, scratching your head saying, how are we still leading in shots after all that? Like I think the game last Sunday in Charlotte, they led in shots for the game, despite losing 5-2. And really, it was 5-1. It didn't feel like a 5-2 game, truthfully, but it's an interesting statistic, and I think you were right earlier by saying that I think the Bears are due for some good fortune to get some lucky bounces. Those types of things have eluded them too. Net mouth scrambles, rebounds not coming onto someone's stick. There's a lot of little things that just haven't bounced their way either. I'm a big positivity guy with those sorts of things. It's got to break through eventually.
Right.
I would really like to just see them, score a couple of dirty goals too in there. A rebound, a Matt Molson stashing kind of goal.
Yeah.
Something like that would be up my alley for these sorts of things.
Well, with that in mind, let's finish up here and go with the picks. So, Corey, being the guest on the show, what are your picks for the Hershey Bears for the weekend?
Well, I'd like to be bold and predict 2 wins. I think the Bears are going to hopefully, defy the odds here a little bit. I'm kind of hoping that maybe we'll get some fortune and see Washington send us a couple of guys here over the weekend. That's hoping at this point. But, I think that the Bears' depth scoring has come through against Syracuse. Against Hartford, it's really going to be winning a 1-0 or a 2-1 game, I think, at this point. They're going to really have to shut them down. I think you've seen some players like Beck Malinstein. I think I may have mentioned earlier, he got his first of the year against Syracuse, a really hard-earned goal, I think. Stole the puck, back-checking on the rush there, turned it to the net, and I think Malinstein scored on a rebound there. Those types of goals, I think that Hershey, minus some of their big personnel, may have to focus on something simpler and simplifying their game a little bit more. And I'm hoping it works out for guys like Malinstein. I think he's been great so far this season. Obviously, he's one of the last guys to get sent down from Washington in the preseason too. I think he's going to earn it. Guys like Shane Gersich, love to see him get on the board. There's a lot of guys that I think are due to get some scoring that, they've provided critical goals in the past for Hershey, like those 2 guys that I think are really going to be relied upon here and step up to the plate. And against Charlotte, I mean, game plan sounds simple, but, do the exact opposite of what you did last weekend. And I think that they have a good shot. They had plenty of shots, some good opportunities. Just don't let the game get away from you, and we'll see what happens.
As for me, Corey, with all the injuries, well, not all the injuries, but with some injuries and all the call-ups, there we go, getting it straight there. It's not looking good for Hershey, in my opinion. But I tell you, if Lehigh Valley can present a challenge to Charlotte, and if Hershey can really, kind of channel some of that same energy, okay, even if they do fall behind 2 or 3 goals, that they can still come back and put some goals on the board. I think the Bears could as well. Saturday, I'm going to pick Hartford, though. I am going to pick Hershey over Charlotte on Sunday. So Hartford on Saturday, Hershey on Sunday. Sean, the A+ student that he is of the game, has also chimed in his absence. He said, when at full strength, the Bears are a talented group. They are nowhere near that right now, unfortunately. So he picked the opposite of a Bears sweep. He picked the Wolfpack and the Checkers to defeat the Bears over the weekend. And he's actually in cahoots with the model that he programs, puts the rosters in, tabulates it. I don't know how it works with the computer and everything, but the model has Hartford as a 62.1% favorite. That's really high with the prediction model that he has. Charlotte's a 59.3% favorite, which is also, again, fairly high. Once you get to the 58, 60 percentile in the model predicting favorites, that's high. So yeah, I mean, a lot can happen, but yeah, things aren't looking good for Hershey on paper and perhaps in the machine as well. But we'll see how it shakes out this weekend. So, Corey, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I will admit I'm taking the long bet on this one too. It is, a lot of the things that Sean's saying I agree with. It's, like I said, I'm notorious when I bet. I usually don't win too much at the casino, but I have a lot of belief, and
Sure.
it's one of the things that you got to have it sometimes in these types of situations. So, and then when you get those big guys back, you like to think you're even better. And the one guy I will say I'd like to say is an X factor. I think he's really on the verge of scoring is Mason Morelli. I've really liked his game. He's been this close to scoring for essentially since they started giving him, he started having consistent time last season. He's a guy where I'm really thinking he's going to break in here soon and get some goals here. So he's kind of my player to watch here too.
Mason Morelli, keep your eyes peeled if you're watching those games this weekend. Corey Swartz, where can people find your work, my friend?
Well, you can find me on Twitter over at you can follow me personally. Corey Swartz CSWA11 is my Twitter handle, or over on my blog, Hershey Bears Hockey Nation, at HBH Nation blog on Twitter. Those are my two pages. I live tweet games and do a lot of highlights. So if you're itching to see some Bears goals over the weekend, you can go find some good ones there. As long as they give them to us.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Corey. We're going to take a break here. After the break, we're going to talk Toronto Marlies with Luke Garrison of Full Press Hockey. If you're just here for the Hershey Bears, though, we do want to thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media, as well as links to our YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, audio and video, are on our link tree page, and it's scrolling below if you're watching the video. If you aren't, I'll spell it out for you. Literally, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. And we're going to pay some bills because, we've got to keep the lights on here at the Calder Farmstead. But once again, Corey, thanks for coming on. And if you're gearing up to see the Marlies with Luke and everybody, well, Luke and myself, stay tuned. All right. Well, we've covered the Hershey Bears in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference of the AHL. And now we're going to go in the North Division. In fact, we're going to go north of the U.S. border. And we're going to talk about the Toronto Marlies. And my next guest on the program, he covers the Toronto Marlies for Full Press Hockey. But, he's also taken on covering the Seattle Kraken this season. So doing double duty for the NHL and the AHL. Please welcome to the program, Luke Garrison. Luke, welcome back, bud.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, got a fancy light up headset there. I like that. Yeah, with the little microphone. And very on brand, color blue as well. So
yeah, like most things I own.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Luke, let's talk about the weekend ahead for the Marlies. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be previewing the weekend versus Lehigh Valley on Saturday at 4 p.m. and versus Cleveland Sunday at 4 p.m. Hosting both of those teams in Toronto at, I still believe they call it Coca-Cola Coliseum. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it'll always be Greco in my head, just like how it's Rogers Center for the Jays, but I'll always call it the Sky Dome. It's tough to get used to those names when you've been saying them for years, but you are right. It is Coca-Cola now. So
Denver Broncos Stadium will always be Mile High for those here in Denver, Colorado. So it can be Empower Field, it can be Sports Authority Field, but it's always going to be Mile High. It's just how it is, whether it's the new stadium or the original old one. So I get it totally. But yeah, let's talk about the Marlies hosting those two teams this weekend. But before we look forward, we got to look back. Toronto sweeping the Central Division leading Wolves in Chicago. Both games 5-1 and a 2-1 overtime victory last weekend. But the most recent game, which you did cover last night, oh my goodness. Okay, Toronto was up 5-1. They scored 2 goals in the first, 3 goals in the second. And you think, okay, 5-1, this game is pretty well locked up. Well, then the Laval Rocket had other plans, and they score 4 straight goals. That last goal to put them over the top in the third period, of course, Mr. Cole Caulfield, the Wonder Kid himself. And they proceed to go, no big deal, 9-round shootout. And Caulfield starting off scoring for the Laval Rocket in that. And the Marlies having Josh Hosang, not a big surprise there. And then Joey Anderson, Lucas Vidamo, and Raphael Harvey-Pinard winning it for the Laval Rocket in the 9th round. Luke, you cover that game. You saw that game. How did the Marlies fall apart so completely?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially because not only were they winning by a lot of goals, before things went south, but, they were like playing very convincingly well, which is not something they can say all the time this season. They've been in a lot of games where they didn't really deserve to be in there, and they still kind of stuck around and got the win. And, I think it goes without saying, but the momentum truly shifted when they were, I believe it was 5-2. And then there was that collision out front with Eric Shalgren, their hot rookie goaltender, who's been, going into that game last night. His numbers were like something to the effect of 4-2 with like a 2.5 GAA, 923 save percentage. He had a nice run to the championship last year with, I believe it was Vaxo in the Swedish league. So he's 25 years old. He's a bit older. And they didn't really know what to expect from him. The Leafs always have these projects come over from the KHL, and a lot of them don't pan out. Maybe the odd one does. But yeah, so far so good. And he has just really been the backbone of that team because, their depth scoring, their defense really hasn't been that great this season. They've truly been carried by their stars and that goalie. And so now that he's gone down, I was scouring Twitter today. There doesn't really seem to be any reports on when he's going to come back. So, but I guess we'll get into that a bit later. As for last night, after he left, I don't know, it just kind of took the wind out of the Marlies sails, so to speak. They just kind of lost their zest for that game. Like they were ripping around, setting up nice plays before that. And, to the point where I remember I tweeted something like, Marlies up 5-1, the Rocket looked lost. Because literally, like, they were just so beaten down at that point that they had just abandoned their system. You could tell they were kind of just freewheeling it. They were frustrated. They were chasing the big hit. They weren't playing the game. And it just looked like the Marlies, frankly, had it in the bag, you know what I mean? Even though there was over half a game to play at that point. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, the Shaman injury, that's huge. That, I mean, and I wasn't sure at what point in the game, I was going to bring that up later in our conversation, but I wasn't sure at what point in the game that he actually got hurt. And, like you mentioned, you hadn't heard anything in regards to that. So I won't belabor that point because you haven't heard any news on it. But, Hutchinson comes in, but just to lose your hot goaltender, and Hutchinson, he does admirably at this level. You know, he's a very, quality AHL level goaltender. And, to have that kind of duo, to keep you in games there is a blessing for sure. But it's just the fact that, with Shalgren going down, you lose your goaltender. And it, like you said, it just takes the wind out of your sails for sure. Yeah. And, so the Marlies back-breaking loss to the Canadian rival in the Laval Rocket, division rival, Canadian rival, insert whatever rivalry in here. I mean, obviously it's not a provincial rivalry because that's with Belleville, but I mean, just as well, if you've got a Canadian team, if you've got a team that's in close proximity, you're going to have that rivalry with them. So with that said, I wanted to go into a little bit about the Toronto Skaters that are having a good season so far this year. Goal scoring, I think, the acquisition in the offseason of Josh Hosang has been pretty revelatory. I mean, he looks rejuvenated out there. He has entered the chat, as it were, as the kids like to say these days.
Yes.
So 7 goals, 3 assists, and 11 games played. 2 shootout goals and a 38.9% shooting percentage. That's 5th in the AHL for players that have a minimum of 6 shots. Obviously, that's probably not a sustainable clip throughout the throughout the season, but that's a hell of a start for Josh Ho-Sang. I mean, what else have you noticed from Ho-Sang as he's come back to the AHL level?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because the way I see it, obviously his talent has never really been what's in question. It was always his work ethic. I mean, there was always questions about his attitude, but a lot of those turned out to be kind of unfounded. So I really just think that, I guess like he had overslept a practice once. There was a couple of highlight moments, but it just seemed like bad luck mixed with lack of effort, which, often to make your own luck, you should exert a lot of effort, which he was not doing. A lot of prospects like him who are taken in the first round, they do take their opportunity for granted because, all these kids, they've likely been the best player on their team their entire lives. They've had it their way. Coaches probably haven't, coached them too much because when a kid's that good, and he's like 14, you're coaching like Bantam or something. That kid's going to score you 40 goals that year. You're going to let him be a puck hog and you're going to let him not play defense. You know what I mean? And so that obviously comes into, or I guess turns into, I should say, like maybe a bit of like an attitude thing. So I don't think he was like necessarily hostile like a lot of people perceived him to be, but he just didn't really have that professional demeanor. He didn't really have that will to work out and push himself maybe as much as he should. So I just think that once he actually went overseas, didn't do so well over there either, did like okay. I think that's when it really hit him, like, wow, like, a lot of people of my pedigree don't make it to the NHL, and this is often why. So, it's kind of like the proverbial wake-up call that a lot of these kids have in their early to mid-20s. You're like, what, like, by the time you turn 24, 25, you kind of lose prospect status, right? So you want to make sure that you kind of get on a team's radar and get your second shot before it's too late. And, this is just another example as well. The Leafs kind of using one of the best resource, I guess, reservoirs of the league because they have the money and they have the means of, signing. Because he got signed to a PTO 2.5 months before the season started on purpose. So you come in, you can use the machines, work out properly, get a good diet plan, work with Barb Underhill on his skating, anything the Leafs and the Marlies had to offer him. And so I think that's, really at the end of the day, your talent only takes you so far. You have to be in a good mental state and you have to have a good attitude and you have to just have the awareness of what it takes to be a pro. And I think that off the ice this summer has just, turned his on ice product into something that's more sustainable at the professional level. And it's funny, I see lots of Leaf fans online checking on Marlies box scores being like, call this guy up, sign him. Engvall sucks. Why is he there and he there? It's like, it's just not that simple, right? Because it's never been a question of his talent. Again, it's just the Leafs have him on a timeline similar to what they did with Galchenyuk last year. And, why rush his process when the Leafs are doing so well? They won 9 of their last 10. And then the Marlies are doing well too. You know what I mean? Like I said, maybe they don't deserve it like that back against the Wolves. They actually got outshot 77-52, but then they outscored their opponents 8-1 over those 2 games. You don't often see that, right? I kind of went back to the Shalgren fame because he stopped 38 shots and the next night he stops 39. You know what I mean? And the Marlies got like, I think 25 to 26 shots of their own. So it's like, that's just, you can't have that volume against and just have it sustained or sustained success, repelling that, I should say. So, yeah, it's great, but to long-windedly get back to the original question, because I like
no worries.
Tangents.
No worries.
Josh Ho-Sang, he's a great player who seems to have found himself again. Obviously, ice time is just up for grabs in the dozens down here, because the Marlies, they do have a lot of good players, but a lot of those players are rookies like Abramov and SDA, and these aren't players who necessarily are ready to log huge minutes at even a lower professional tier level coming out of junior. So it's kind of been necessary for him to take on that role, and then the fact that he's thriving is just a bonus. So the real problem is that beyond him, Alex Steves and Brett Ceni, who I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later, the Marlies aren't really getting scoring from anywhere else. So that makes his success story even more imperative, along with the goaltending, as to why the Marlies are in second place when, in my opinion, they should be a lot lower in the standings and not being teams like the Wolves back to back. So,
well, and Luke, Sean, my normal co-host, who obviously isn't here tonight, but he has a wonderful Tableau page where he is, chronicling individual player success at an analytics level. And Josh was saying, 10 games played, percentile rank amongst forwards this season is 89.24%. So that's good for a first line forward grade. So to be in the top 11% of forwards in the league after spending a couple seasons over in Sweden, not playing a whole lot. I think it was just, 4, 5, 6 games a season, both last year and the year before. But to come back, kind of have a resurgence, and to be, like you said, a scoring threat here with the Marlies, it reminds me of covering the Eagles here. The Eagles, they have a handful of guys that are contributing, Dylan Secura, Alex Newhook, Kiefer Sherwood, and these guys that have contributed a lot on the score sheet. And of course, you call Sherwood up, you call Newhook up. The Eagles kind of have to find the scoring from other places as well. And you mentioned Brett Ceni. He was kind of, as were many people last season, in the doldrums of Binghamton, New York, stuck with the Devils, the AHL Devils rather. And he's almost equaled his point total from Bingo last year in half as many games. 7 goals, 2 assists in 12 games played. And he had 5 goals and 5 assists in 30 games played last season. Granted, COVID last season was kind of an anomaly in a lot of different ways with the pandemic and everything like that. But the fact that you can come back and be like, hey, I've pretty much equaled my point total from last season in half as many games. Brett Ceni, not predicted to really have a resurgence, or a resurgent year rather, with the Marlies this season. I mean, you've been impressed with him though this season, from what I've gathered.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just another great example of a long shot prospect kind of, finding their way back, because, he was a late round pick of the Devils like a long time ago. I'm kind of taking a bit of a guess here, but I'm pretty sure he was like a 6th round pick in like 2014 or 2015.
I'll check it out.
So I'm more confident with 2015, but it's one of those two. And, I remember he had a couple of good seasons with, the Little Devils. He, I think, had a 44-point season or something along those lines.
Good memory. Yes, and it was 2015 that he was a 6th round pick. So
nice.
Look at the big brain on Luke.
Sometimes I go off book and I don't look stupid. It's fantastic.
You went 2 for 2 right there, pulling those stats out of the air. So not too shabby at all.
Perfect. But yeah, so. And then, like you said, last year was very uncharacteristic for him, because, this is the guy who's even put up, like, I think, here we go with my number memory again. I'm pretty sure it's like he had like 5 goals and I want to say like 13 points in his stint with the New Jersey Devils. I want to say.
Oh my goodness, you nailed it again in 18-19.
It was like 46 or 47 games. Oh man.
It was 51.
51. Okay.
So I mean,
I've looked at these semi recently, but I'm still impressed that I retained that much.
Damn.
Thank you.
Really good.
So it's funny that last season, he seems to be doing worse in the AHL than he was in the NHL a couple seasons prior. So that when something like that happens to a young player or a young guru player, he's not super young, I guess, but it just kind of always stems from a confidence thing, I find. So just, it's kind of one of those cliches too, but sometimes, when you go to your second home, no matter what sport it is, you're a young player and your first home didn't work out, whether you were a 1st round pick or a 7th round pick, that new fresh start somewhere else, just, it works wonders. So it just seems to have done that for him. And it's awesome as well, because with the type of player that he is, in contrast to the makeup of how most of the Marlies forwards are, like, they need a Brett Ceni, because he's not afraid to get into the corners, even though he's a skilled player. A lot of his goals this year have been like crash him, bang him. You know what I mean? He's always around the net. He's not afraid to get into the dirty areas. And he kind of combines that with his, goal scoring prowess. His goal scorers are good at getting in soft areas. So he gets in the soft areas, even if they're dirty, and he's constantly rewarded, or he has been so far anyway. And, when you have a lot of like players in the Marlies, like I was talking before, STA, Abramov, these rookies, a lot of these guys, they're kind of like Nylander, Marner type players, solely in the sense that they are perimeter players and they do their best when they're setting up from the outside. Although I guess with Nylander, you could argue he's taken a step the last couple of years and he's not exactly like that anymore. Marner's a better example. I'm not comparing these players to Marner at all, full disclosure, but just the way they see the game and the way they need to be successful is what I see as similar, because they just, they're skill first. They got the nice saucer pass. They got the big hockey brain up there. And so, like Brett Ceni, he's almost kind of like a Zach Hyman, right? He's smart. He knows how to score, but he just knows how to do like those intangible things that really opens up space for, his quote unquote more skilled line mates. Although it's hard to say that this year when, like I said, he's accounting for like a good portion of the team's goals. So yeah, it's been really nice to see him, Ho-Sang, and Steves all do well, because to me they're three completely different kinds of players, and so it's almost like a perfect puzzle. You know what I mean? The way they're fitting into this lineup. And this is great, because obviously a lot of promotions have caused a lot of the lack of success for the Marlies the last couple of years amongst COVID and whatever else. But, this is a team that finished like first place almost every year, went to the playoffs almost every year. Obviously they won the Calder Cup not that long ago.
Right.
So, this is a team that's used to success, used to having a good on-ice product. They're used to having a good regeneration system too, because all these players have graduated to the Leafs and had success there too. And then they're still able to kind of, go out and find these hidden gems like Noel Hoffenmeyer, for example, who was like the OHL defenseman of the year, but he was unsigned. He's one of those junior prospects where like defense at the pro level was in question to the point where he didn't even get a flyer. And so, these guys, they work out or they don't. And Hoffenmeyer obviously hasn't played as much with the Marlies this year as people are hoping. But yeah, it's just about, keeping that, development line fluid, making sure there's always someone coming up to replace somebody else. And I think this year is the first time in like a while that the Marlies have actually gotten back to that and done that very well. Whether it's a Josh Ho-Sang, who is a fresh start kind of player, or Alex Steves, who's undrafted at Notre Dame, you know what I mean? And then obviously other NHL teams were interested in him as well. He was a point per game player at that level, and that always draws some NHL and AHL interest. And he managed, like the Leafs managed to persuade him to come to Toronto, which, it's never been a question of resources or facilities. Now the Leafs, first round woes aside, have been more successful in recent years than usual. These players are like, oh, I can go to this organization that has a chance at winning at both levels and has great resources and, plus. Like, I don't know how the contracts work exactly in this regard, but, I'm sure with a more money-rich team like Toronto compared to other franchises, there's bonuses they can put in there and more incentives. And so it's nice, that they can attract these players that will end up leading their minor league team in scoring when they don't really, they haven't had a lot of first-round picks in recent years, and Dubas has kind of been a bit spend happy with the Leafs picks, but now the Marlies don't seem to be hurting as much from that. So that's very nice to see.
We've got Elaine Shircliff, and she's covering one of her 4 teams that she's covering this year for Full Press Hockey. Is
what a machine.
she's a beast, man. She's a beauty, I tell you. But Elaine, one of 4 teams is the Chicago Wolves. And you talk about an organization that has been successful and has been kind of a destination for success. I think the Wolves, being, and like I said, that'll be our next segment. We'll cover that. But I mean, that kind of reminds me just the things that you're talking about, kind of a destination for free agents and for players to revitalize their career, as it were, and to be part of a successful program, making the playoffs, making a legitimate run at the Eastern Conference Final, and if not, the Calder Cup Final. That's kind of what the parallel in my mind drew to. But you mentioned SDA, which is a pretty neat way to acronym, to put that acronym in there instead of having to say Semyon Dur-Agachintsev.
Yes.
Dur-Agachintsev is quite a mouthful for sure. But But yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a great rookie season so far. He's a top 15, lead scoring amongst rookies. So 3 goals, 6 assists in 12 games played. Very disciplined too. I've noticed 4 penalty minutes in those 12 games played. Not too shabby at all, but also, game-winning goal against Chicago in overtime in that last game as well. So, I mean, Duragachintsev, and you mentioned Abramov. Is that how you pronounce it? Abramov. There
I'm
you
pretty
go.
sure it's Abramov. Yeah.
Okay. Now, amongst the rookies, I mean, which one impresses you more, Duragachintsev or Abramov?
That's a very good question. Because I feel like both just haven't been rewarded the way they should be in terms of the stat sheet this year. Because they've both gotten so many looks, and so it's been nice, to see Duragachintsev. I think he scored in 3 straight games now. He scored again yesterday. And he's finally getting rewarded for all those good looks that he's getting. What also has really impressed me about Duragachintsev and Abramov is they've both put on there's still a lot to go, but they both look a lot bigger than they did in their last year of junior when everyone had the questions about them, like not having the size maybe to cut it. And so it was kind of nice too that SDA. I'm going to say the acronym.
Feel free. That makes it a lot more easy, I tell you.
Yeah, right. But it was nice that he kind of, I believe it was like Torpedo, the team was called, and like the second basically the KHL's AHL last year when he got loaned out there for a bit. I think that was a great way to kind of ease him into the professional game because, obviously European ice is bigger. There's more space to operate. The game there is like a lot less physical.
Right.
And so I feel like that was a great way to kind of adjust to the pace of pro hockey in unprecedented times when he didn't really have any other choice. I feel like that was kind of like a built-in silver lining because he's looked very confident this year, and especially the last 2 games. It's really starting to round a corner. And I sound like a broken record, but confidence is key when you're a young player. And once you get that confidence going, everything else kind of just falls into place, and the process chugs along. So yeah, I think both I see them in a very similar light in the sense that they were kind of, I believe they were both 4th round picks, or they were both picked a bit later anyway, and they were both smaller, had questions, but they both seem to have a nose for the net and good hockey IQ, and all those intangibles that you can't really teach, which are naturally Dubas and the scouting staff target and covet. That's like kind of the only player they ever interested in. So,
right.
And it's kind of, obviously it's hit and miss like any other kind of formula you try and implement. But at the end of the day, it's true. You can't teach hockey IQ. You can improve skating, but some players are just naturally good skaters, even if they're smaller. So if you can pick up somebody who has intangibles you can't teach already, he just needs to work on other things that are very teachable, like size and using your body, and just kind of having that mental awareness to realize how to play the pro game without getting yourself decked, which will take a few hits naturally. You can't just read the theory and never get clocked. But yeah, I think that they're both adjusting pretty well. They're having very typical years for like AHL rookies, I'd say. You know what I mean? Like not everybody's going to burst onto the scene and just kind of take over right away. Like maybe, I guess some argue Nick Robertson did, even though it was a small sample size. And yeah, it's also nice too to see that they're kind of able to shoulder some of the load and able to play some of these minutes because, naturally, I believe it's the second game of the season where Robertson went out now with that devastating injury, and the poor kid just can't catch a break. And, naturally, that was probably going to be a top line Marlies forward this season. So all of a sudden, it's like, who fills Robertson's spot, especially when the Leafs are, they're dealing with a couple injuries. They call up a couple of people. Luckily, they have been relatively healthy. Aside from now when they're holding Roll hostage and the goalie situation is crazy, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, well, we'll briefly touch on that for sure, especially when we're making our picks. But
yeah,
I did want to touch base, kind of keys for the weekend for the Marlies, 2 or 3 keys that Toronto needs to abide by in order to get a win over Lehigh Valley and Cleveland, either one or the other or both. So looking at Sean O'Brien's, my co-host again, his Tableau page, PDO. So PDO is shooting percentage plus save percentage for the listeners who don't know that. And if it is about 100, then you're about you're clipping at about a good rate. There's not a whole lot of puck luck going on, and there's not a whole lot of bad luck going on. So if you're under 100, depending on how low you go, the bad luck increases. If you're over 100, you're getting some good puck luck, and Toronto getting a little bit of the good puck luck going on. So just about an 11% shooting percentage, little bit over 91% save percentage from the goaltending, 102.02 PDO. So again, a little bit over 100, getting a little lucky, getting a little puck luck going on, but you got to come back a little bit down to earth, or maybe you go up a little bit and stay maybe at 102. But I digress. With all of that said, maybe with a Marlies reality check coming into play, especially with Shaw. Oh, I was about to say Shaman. Is it Shaman or?
It's spelled Calgren, but it's pronounced Shalgren.
Shalgren. Yeah, there's another player on San Jose that has I think it's Shaman. I can't remember his name. I'm gonna have to look it up. But yeah, the K is the SH sound. I know that, but I couldn't remember if it was Shalgren or Shalman. So anyway, with Shalgren going down, back to it. Keys for the weekend, Luke. What do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start off by saying that, Lehigh Valley, they are last in their division. They have 3 wins in 14 games or something like that. That is just a must win. That has to be a slam dunk.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, all controversy aside, because, they have Hutchison, but it will be very interesting to see kind of what they do with that goalie situation. If Shalgren's out for any period of time, the Leafs can't give Wool back because they need him, because Mrazek is out for even longer. So, that kind of, is it finally time for the Keith Petruzzelli era? The Marlies signing from back in May, who was,
right.
He's had some good years. I think he played for like Quinnipiac, or like he played for like
Quinnipiac. Yeah. He's over with the Growlers now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, he had a good season in the ECAC. They signed him to a 2-year AHL contract. And he's having the Growlers have kind of been running a platoon. Like, both their goalies have played 5 games. But what I remember is that he has a 1.6 GAA, and the other guy is just like almost 4. So, like, he's definitely been superior. And, so, I mean, he really is their last line of defense, because, knock on wood, but if they get him, that's something happened to him, then I don't even know what they would do. Because Andrew D'Agostini's gone. They did release him. So he is no longer a part of the organization.
I was wondering.
So, yeah, right. I mean, Hutchison looks like, if Shalgren's going to miss any time, he's going to take the bulk of the starts. So really, and the reason why I talk about this so much when you ask me this question is because naturally it's a back-to-back. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see how they play that. You never ideally want to run the same goalie back in the second night, but maybe they won't have a choice.
I mean, if your name is Mikhail Burden, you've been used to that for a number of seasons now. So
fair enough. Yeah,
I figured you'd appreciate that joke with the Manitoba tie in there. But Cal Pickard in Grand Rapids too. I mean, they've with Bratstrom not being really up to snuff, they've had to get Cal Pickard on a back-to-back for a couple of weekends as well. So, but we'll see. We'll see who starts in goal. And with that in mind, let's finish up this segment with our picks for the weekend. And Luke, being the guest, you go first, my friend.
Okay. So by picks, you're meaning just like who I think is going to win the game on Saturday and Sunday?
Correct.
Okay. So I think Saturday, I am going to pick the Marlies just because, it seems even if they're intangibly in seconds, or maybe I should say luckily, they should not lose to a last place team. It just should not happen. So they have to get Lehigh Valley on Saturday. I will take them in that game. Sunday, however, I mean, Cleveland is, I think, a point behind them in their division. They're breathing down their necks. And it's just not only do I think they have to win that game, although I guess I will preface this by saying I do think Cleveland is going to win that second game. Just at this point, because I don't know what the goaltending situation is.
Right.
So I just think that if they run Hutchison back a second night, even though, that works for other teams. Like I just have a bad feeling about it, I guess.
That's fair.
Yeah, right. Even though I think he's only played like 4 or 5 games this year, so like he's definitely fresh. He's used to a full workload. It's funny. The other thing I wanted to quickly say was,
sure.
I don't know if you had noticed, but they play Cleveland on Sunday, then they don't play again until Friday, which is also against Cleveland. And I can't remember. And then where I'm going with this is they play Cleveland back-to-back Friday, Saturday. So actually their next 3 games are against Cleveland after Lehigh Valley. And what intrigues me and what will be crazy about that back-to-back especially is that I think the Friday night in either Cleveland or Toronto, they play at 7. And then, so the game will naturally wrap up around 9:30, 10, right? And then the next day they play at 4 in the other city. So they'll have 18 hours or less from game finish to next puck drop. And I think, it's early in the season, but I think the Marlies have to win at least 2 of those 3 games against a divisional rival. They definitely have to win at least 1. They cannot lose all 3. And so as much as I think the Marlies will and probably could win 2 of 3 because, they do have some hot scorers right now, despite all of the goaltending woes, I do think they're going to drop that first one this Sunday. So I will take Cleveland on Sunday this week.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not that far of a drive. It's
at least,
It's 290 miles or 467 kilometers for you up there in Canada. You're welcome. So it's about a 4-hour and 45-minute drive time. But yes, on November 26th, Toronto at Cleveland, and then November 27th at 4 p.m., Cleveland at Toronto. Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a quick turnaround. But like you said, 1 or 2 of those 3 definitely would be a good morale boost for the Marlies. I tell you, I'm going to say whichever game Hutch starts is going to be the game that Toronto wins. So if he starts both games, I'm going to say that they're going to win both games. But if he only starts one and Petruzzelli gets called up from Newfoundland, then I say he struggles a little bit and he'll lose that game, even if it's against Lehigh Valley. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But like you mentioned, Toronto, second place in the North Division. Of course, Utica is being Utica, 11-0-0.
I know, right?
Just blowing everybody out of the water in the North Division there. But Toronto, solid second place, .625 points percentage, 7-4-1. Good for 15 points in 12 games played. Not too shabby. Not bad. Cleveland nipping on the heels, 6-3-4. So a lot of those overtime points helping them get 16 points in 13 games, .615 points percentage. So some crucial North Division points up for grabs in those 3 games. And even though he's not here, even though Sean is absent, he was kind enough to submit his picks because he's just that kind of, grade A hockey student. So he's going to take Toronto on Saturday, but Cleveland on Sunday. So you guys are in the same accord there.
Look at
that. Also, and Sean, of course, also has a model picking games because that's how he is. He's just a numbers guru. So our model is 55.6% favorite for Toronto on Saturday and 54.7% favorite for Toronto on Sunday. So the model is picking a sweep. So we'll see how that works out. The model has beaten Sean and I the past couple weeks. So, I mean,
I would love to be proven wrong.
Right? Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it works out. But I mean, if the model's right, then okay.
Yeah.
But so those are your picks. And that's all for the Toronto Marlies. Luke Garrison from Full Press Hockey, of course. Luke, again, you cover the Seattle Kraken up at the NHL level. You cover the Toronto Marlies at the AHL level. Where can people find your work? Where can people find you tweeting from? Lay it on us.
All right. Free pump. I like it. So my Twitter handle, because I made Twitter in grade 11 for a school project and it was just starting. And so that's why I have @Luke Hockey with no spaces and no numbers.
Nice.
No frills.
Way to get that handle early on.
I know, right?
Man.
As a 15-year-old, I was already branding myself for the future, and I had no idea. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Worked out super well.
Yes. And as for my work, I can't remember the link exactly, but I think it's like something to the effect of fullpresshockey.com/author/L Garrison. But if you have me on Twitter,
specific or anything, yeah,
yeah, something in that ballpark. But yeah, I mean, if you have me on Twitter, you can basically find me everywhere else. I'm not very hard to find online. So yeah, I mean, I haven't been writing in a while because I have to take a little break, but I have some nice stuff cooking. I'm sure you saw the Marlies article that I've started. I'm hoping to get that fired off by tomorrow. And then the Seattle one I'm working on is a lot longer. It's kind of like a complex idea I've been toiling for a while. So the trick is going to be finding a good length of words that will be interesting and not boring. So I'll let you know how that goes.
that is the plight of a writer, is
yes,
the kind of, all right, how is this going to be interesting for other people?
Yeah,
I hope it's interesting for other people. That's
if I put a picture every 300 words, how many times can I write 300 words?
There you go.
Yeah.
People love pictures. People love media.
Love it.
I am people too. I love pictures. And
I know,
too.
Right? Yeah. Look at a good GIF halfway through an article,
Yeah, there you go. That's the spirit. The one, the only at Luke Hockey, Luke Garrison, joining the program. And like I mentioned, we're going to talk Chicago Wolves with Elaine Shircliff next, and Courtney Bauman as well, covering the Rockford Icehogs for Full Press Hockey. We're going to get a double dose of some fantastic female writers for Full Press Hockey. That was a lot of F's. That was a good use of alliteration.
I can't believe you pulled that off. That was tricky.
Freaking fantastic. So we're going to take a break. If you're just here for Luke and talking Marlies, thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media, as well as links to our YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts can be found at our Linktree page. You can see the see the banner scrolling below on YouTube. But if not, I'll spell it out for you quite literally. linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to run some ads. We're going to keep the lights on here at the Calder Farmstead. Don't go anywhere. Again, Elaine and Courtney, Rockford and Chicago, coming up. All right, we've covered the Eastern Conference here in the AHL for the weekend preview, and now we're going to go to the Western Conference in the Central Division, and we're doing a twofer. We're going to do two guests this time around because we're covering the Rockford Icehogs and the Chicago Wolves. They've got a 2-game set this weekend. So first and foremost, the Rockford Icehogs correspondent for Full Press Hockey, and of course, hosting her own podcast from Center Ice. We're bringing back for a second episode in a row, Courtney Bauman. Courtney, welcome back to the show. Howdy.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on. And of course, the yin to Courtney's yang. This episode is, again, another Full Press Hockey correspondent. She covers 4 teams, and one of those is the Chicago Wolves. The other ones are Milwaukee, Grand Rapids, and her home market, the Cleveland Monsters. Elaine Shircliff coming on back to the Calder Farmstead. Elaine, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I almost said welcome back to you as well.
That is the hockey. Welcome back to you, Cece. Welcome back to your show. It was just 2 or 3 days ago you were recording. Welcome back to the program. Well, first and foremost, let's get started with the news coming out of Rockford that they brought on, obviously with the coaching upheaval with the Blackhawks, Derek King being called up to be the interim head coach for the Chicago Blackhawks. And you've got Anders Soderstrom. Did I say his last name right?
Sorensen.
Wrong Swedish name. My bad. Wrong Swedish surname. So you bring in a new coaching staff, and you also bring in a new assistant coach in Jared Nightingale. He's 39 years old. He actually served as the Icehogs team captain in 13-14. And I found this stat rather telling. In 67 games played for Rockford, 1 goal, 3 assists, led the team with 114 penalty minutes. He posted over 100 penalty minutes in 8 seasons of professional hockey at the AHL and ECHL level. Oh, by the way, 43 games played as well in 15-16 and 16-17 with the Chicago Wolves. So kind of an interesting tie-in as Courtney shakes her head very slowly in obvious disappointment. But Nightingale, he's been coaching in major juniors up in Canada in the OHL, Flint Firebirds, Saginaw Spirit, and he actually coached Icehogs for DJ. Is it Busdecker? Busdecker.
DJ. Yeah.
Oh boy, I am way in over my head this episode.
Were you prepared?
That's the sound I send her every time he scores.
It's fantastic.
Oh my goodness. Wow. See, that's the good thing here is that like we're all friends behind the scenes as well. Like we're not just like in our own little pockets here. Like we are in the DMs being like, look at this ridiculousness. And oh hey, check
there's
this
a
out.
lot of ridiculousness.
There truly is. And that's the thing is when you can be friends with the people that you're also coworkers with.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful. So with that said, Courtney, what do you think of this assistant coaching hire by Rockford?
With the coaching takes I've had lately, I maybe shouldn't comment on the coaching since the Blackhawks are now 4-0 under Derek King. I hope Jared Nightingale does wonderful in Rockford.
Has obviously Nightingale kind of to put it bluntly, an enforcer type during his playing days for sure. Mm-hmm. Do you think Rockford needs more of that?
They need more of a lot of things, but I think their grittiness is something they kind of got down. They got Dmitry Osipov out there. Garrett Mitchell is usually pretty riled up, especially when they play the Wolves, so this should be pretty fun this weekend. But, he didn't score a lot of goals during his career, so he fits right in with the Icehogs.
There you go. Oh, gosh. Speaking of the Icehogs, let's talk. Okay, so yes, Rockford and Chicago both playing each other this weekend. So Friday, 7 p.m. at Rockford, Saturday, 7 p.m. at Chicago.
Which is hockey night in Chicago. That's like Saturday night hockey night in Chicago. It's like a branding thing that
it is.
Doing. Yeah.
Are they trying to be Canada? Like what are
They're trying to be better than Canada. Yes.
That's going to be tough.
The Rosemont Wolves are definitely better than Canada.
Yes. I have seen your direct messages about them, and I know that you love them. So, yes.
Now we're spreading lies.
Ladies, please. Let's stay civil here. Let us not accuse one another. Let us be of one accord in our Chicago hockey coverage, shall we?
You want civility during a Rockford Chicago segment here?
That's fair.
After he just asked if Rockford needed some extra muscle on it.
Courtney Bauman's bringing the muscle. I'll tell you what. My goodness.
If they don't start scoring some goals, they might see me down there.
Right. Well, yeah, Rockford 3-6-1, .350 points percentage, 6th out of 7 teams in the Central Division, like we talked about in our last episode. Courtney 1-2-1 this month. All different opponents this month. I found kind of odd. Grand Rapids, Manitoba, Iowa, and Chicago.
Yeah, that's not very usual in the AHL.
No, I mean, and we kind of pointed it out. Like Chicago, we've been meaning to preview them. Sean and I have, and it's just a matter of like we want to do like a weekend set, and this was the first weekend, or at least maybe the second. They did play Toronto last weekend, but we couldn't quite get to them for priority of other teams, aka the Utica Comets, who are now 11-0-0.
They did get that 11th win, eh?
They did.
All they needed to do was drop Vancouver.
Do what?
All they need to do is drop Vancouver, and now they have a good team.
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, I mean, it's New Jersey's prospects, so it's like Binghamton going to Utica and adding a few more key pieces, and Kevin Dineen as head coach. That's kind of he's kind of a good
kind of
head
important.
Coach. Kind of important,
That name's familiar.
Yeah, right. But anyway, back to Rockford, back to Courtney. I know it's kind of a loaded question, Courtney, with everything going on, but team wise, I mean, what can the Icehogs do just to set the ship right as a team? I mean, they've got at least 3 points out of 8, so that's a start. And I know that they've got that overtime, that win against Manitoba, close win, 1-goal game, and then that overtime loss against Iowa,
Oh, that was rough.
Tell me about it. What happened?
So the Wild tied it up with the goalie pulled.
Okay.
And I don't remember exactly how much time was left, but it was right at the end of the third. And then the officials missed a call on Iowa. And then they didn't call offside because the Iowa player was going for a line change, but wasn't off the ice yet. So offside, didn't call it, and then proceeded to call a penalty on Rockford, putting Iowa on the power play, and they scored.
Just kind of the snake bitten nature of the Icehogs to start this season.
It was just a whole sequence of horrible, and I thought Malcolm Subban was going to lose his mind. He was angry.
Yeah, and his second 1-goal game as well. I mean, 4-3 against Manitoba, 4-3 overtime loss against Iowa. And then you put Soderblom in for the game against Chicago, 4-1 loss. I mean, I know you were pretty high on Soderblom. I mean, you wrote about it for Full Press Hockey, just how impressed you were. And, early season MVP for the Rockford Icehogs.
He did spoil the Chicago Wolves home opener, so he will forever be the MVP this season.
There you go.
That is very true.
So, as a team, I mean, they're near the bottom of the league, maybe 3 or 4 spots, for penalty kill and power plays. And I mean, I'm trying to walk lightly, maybe on eggshells, and be a little delicate here. But I mean, when you're also, towards the bottom in also shots for and shots against, 29th and 30th. Courtney, help me out. I mean, put on some rose tinted glasses and tell me what's been good about the team so far this year.
What's been good about the team? Lucas Greco has been exciting. He did get a hat trick the other day, so that's good. It's always good when your top prospects do well in the American League. I still think Soderblom is a big plus on the season, even though that last game, 4-1 against Chicago, it was 3-0 in the first period, so it's just really hard to come back from that.
Yeah, it is.
But he's very solid in net, and for a rookie netminder, you're gonna have games like that. But he's fun to watch. The defense hasn't been great. Alex Nylander has had flashes. He'll have games where he looks pretty dominant out there alongside Reichel, and then the next game he will just disappear. And I know consistency was something people were upset with him about in the NHL. So hopefully he can continue putting that together. But coming off missing a whole season last year, I think he's played very well to start the year so far.
So I actually stand corrected on the shots for and against. Rockford is dead last in the league in both of those
that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all. And
21. Oh, go ahead.
In Soderblom's first 3 games, I want to say he faced 40 plus shots.
Yeah, you can't get peppered like that and consistently be a good goaltender unless you're, just that elite level Patrick Waugh or Martin Brodeur, Henrik Lundqvist. Yeah.
But they haven't had many blowouts though, right? Like they haven't
not really
7-3 or anything.
No, the first game of the season was 6-1, so there was that. But other than that, not really. They've been able to sort of keep up, but not as much as they need to. And when they're not getting a lot of shots on goal, that's going to happen.
Right. Now, you mentioned Nylander, you mentioned Soderblom. I said Blom, which is not right.
You know, they keep going back and forth with how they say it. So
Sure.
I keep going back and forth with how I say it until one of them corrects me.
Yeah, not confusing at all when you have, different sportscasters saying different names or the same sportscaster saying it differently. Yeah. Yeah. So Nylander, Soderblom, you mentioned Lucas Reichel. Is there anybody else that is a bright spot, even in spite of all those doom and gloom figures that I brought up, Courtney?
I got two more guys for you. So first of all, we got Dmitry Osipov, and if nothing else, he's just fun to watch out there because he will just go out there and wreck guys when you want him to, and it's fantastic. The other guy is Josiah Slavin, and after coming out of college at the end of last year, he's consistently been one of the best Icehogs on the ice every night. He might not put up as many points, and he might not stick out to you every single game, but he goes to the right spots, and he's an effective guy out there. And kind of like I said about Chris Wilkie in the last episode, when he's not in the lineup, that's when you can really see his impact. So he's been impressive to me as well.
Josiah Slavin, as a Colorado resident now, I would be remiss to say, born in Erie, Colorado, which is a suburb of Boulder, Colorado, right outside of Denver there, where Colorado University is, and played 2 years at Colorado College as well. So got the super Colorado ties for Josiah Slavin there. And I know that both the Blackhawks and the Icehogs had a few guys that either had DU or CC ties for a few of their players. So
yeah, we got Ian Mitchell down in Rockford now too.
That's right.
Yep. The Hawks sent him down.
Right. Yes. I wasn't sure where he was currently, because, it's always fun with the call-ups and the send-downs, and yeah.
At least we don't have a taxi squad.
Yeah.
At least you don't have a taxi squad. That's right. That is right. Yeah.
When they were talking about that, adding it again, when they were talking about adding it again this season, I literally went to church and went to adoration and lit 6 candles. And I was like, dear Lord, I'm going to say 100 Hail Marys and say the rosary. And I'm begging you, please do not bring back the taxi squad.
I think you saved us. But you were too late, and you could not save Brandon Peary, because I'm pretty sure he's still on the taxi squad.
Yeah, where the hell did Brandon Peary go? Like, we were keeping track of Central Division and Pacific Division transactions in the offseason, and like each and every player would get signed or ended up in Europe, or how the minor league thing, transactions in the offseason goes, and Brandon Peary is just
there.
chilling.
He's in limbo.
He's still
I thought he would be somewhere.
Forever stuck on the taxi squad. They got rid of it, so now they got rid of him. He's just floating out in the universe.
Like the upside down? Is that what it is? Yes. Like the upside down.
Yes.
I was gonna go more of the Catholic route and say purgatory, but
That's kind of
purgatory has a chance to bring you up or down, though. In this situation, we have no clue what's going on.
That's very true. It's like one of the parallel universes for those who watched the Loki series, which yes. So anyway, but
and while we're talking about guys who have been good, I mean, he's been with Chicago, and then he was on the COVID list, but I can't talk about the Icehogs and not talk about my boy Isaac Phillips.
Right, of course.
Because as a 20-year-old defenseman, he's the best defender on the team, and it blows my mind every time he's out there.
And yet he's only played 4 games for Rockford this season, unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was called up, and he looked pretty good for the Hawks, being a rookie defender. You can either be kind of thrown to the wolves out there, to be festive with this episode, or you can look good, and he looked pretty good, but then he got sent back down after being on COVID protocol, and he hasn't hopped back into a game yet. So hopefully this weekend.
Last thing real quick, let's look down. Let's look at the Indy Fuel and the ECHL and see, are there any players that have been called up? I'm thinking like maybe, how has, Cliff Watson looked, for example, or I'm not familiar with all the transactions that have occurred from Indy, but has anybody from the Fuel in their time up with Rockford impressed you, Courtney?
Cliff Watson has looked okay. I know the last game I went to was that Iowa game. I wasn't at the Chicago game, thank goodness. He had a few really big shot blocks, and as a defenseman, that's a good thing to ask for out of him. But he hasn't looked bad. It doesn't surprise me that he got sent down, and he's kind of one of those guys where if you need somebody to fill in, he'll go up and down. But yeah, he didn't look too bad. I am still waiting for when Cale Morris will get the call again to come back up and play in net.
Yes, all hail Cale. He did really good last season. I'm surprised he hasn't been given more of a look there in Rockford, but
we do have 3 goaltenders.
yeah, you did chronicle that in your last piece, but you mentioned Cliff Watson being kind of that go-to guy. I remember him his rookie season. It was my first year covering the league, and of course the Utah Grizzlies in 17-18 played the Idaho Steelheads a lot, which was the team that I covered living in Boise, Idaho. So Cliff Watson is a name that I am very familiar with, and yeah, Utica, San Jose, Stockton, Hershey, Utica again, Ontario, Chicago Wolves, Rockford. 8 AHL teams in like 3 or 4 seasons, but it's like a cup of coffee every now and again. So
what is it with these 2 teams? And they just have so many players that go between the 2. I already talked about Dmitry Osipov. He was a Wolf. Then you had Brandon Peary, who's just out in the universe somewhere. But once he left and eventually got back around to the Wolves and just couldn't stop scoring on the Icehogs ever.
That's true.
But then he got a hat trick against Chicago last season when he was allowed to play.
Well, hey, speaking of Chicago, let's pivot and we'll let Elaine take the floor here a little bit. The Chicago Wolves, yes, your disdain is noted, Courtney. Chicago 8-3-1, .708 points percentage, good for first out of 7 teams in the Central Division. Iowa and them were tied on Wednesday, but then Iowa with the loss, so they are now in sole possession of first place in the Central Division. Elaine, I tell you, yeah, you're covering 4 different teams this year, but I mean, Chicago Wolves gonna Wolves. You know, it seems every offseason they go out and they pick up the best, if not just a solid quality of free agents, and they bring them together and they have some sort of magic wand, which is crazy because their affiliations change so much, it feels like, but they've just got the magic wand where team chemistry and just how they gel every year, it's like it works out to where they've got a Western Conference, if not a Calder Cup contender.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that, to be honest. I mean, it is Courtney, please don't make a bad face when I say this, but it is a world-class organization. Especially after being in the stadium just one game and interacting with the people that work with the team, it's very focused on the game, but they're all personable, and it's like a mix of fun but also taking pride in their jobs. And I think that just translates across the entire organization, to their players, to whoever's scouting, to whomever is just like, well, I mean, the GM, and to the owner. I think it's just all the way around, like their social media, everything. They are all under the thing of like being proud of their work and having fun, you know, and that's, I think it's translating that way. But it's still wild. Like, how do they keep finding them? I honestly don't know. People want to play there is the thing too. Like Terry Broadhurst keeps coming back. I know it's hometown. I know it's like, you know, nearby where he grew up, but he keeps coming back. He wants to come back and play, not just because someone's like giving him the chance, but like it's a great place to play. And I knew that the Wolves had young talent when Coach Warsofsky said in media day, and he was just talking, he went through and he gave points of note about every single player on the team. And then he kind of skipped over Terry, and they cut him the next day because he was really impressed with the youth. And it was in that moment when they cut him from training camp that I was like, oh, this team is going to be fun because they're young and there's a lot of talent. And I see Courtney's face is so funny right now.
Tale of two franchises for sure.
But when you have a coach like that, though, who, when you ask about one player specifically, and he goes through and lists every single player on the roster basically and gives you a point of note about their positive, how do you not want to play well for a coach like that?
Yeah, and I mean, it is truly a team effort. Like, you have your top scorers, Paul Dorowski, CJ Smith, Stefan Nosen, those are your double-digit scorers, but then you go beyond that, and it's like, it feels like scoring is really spread out amongst the rest of the roster, and I'm looking at a bunch of guys that, again, I don't recognize from last season. You have Podorowski from San Diego, CJ Smith, he's coming in from Rochester. Stefan Nosen played in San Jose last year. Jaylen Chatfield, I don't think was on the team last year. I know Max Tunov. Yeah,
so
go ahead.
That's someone I want to. Sorry, I just got really excited. No,
go for it.
That's someone I want to talk about is Jaylen Chatfield. He scored 5 goals his entire time with the Vancouver Canucks organization. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that was 5 seasons or something. He was on a 3-game goal streak, and I don't know. I mean, he's a defender, and he's good at defending, but I did not know because, Utica plays the Monsters so much. I did not know that he could score. I did not know he had that aptitude. I did not know that about him at all. And I don't know if it's the Wolves coaching, but he is very much like Mark Del Gaizo from Milwaukee, who I wrote an article about recently about what they offer, even when they're not getting on the stat sheet. He's the same way. He's setting up these plays. He's like the third assist, the fourth assist. He's doing something away from the puck that's causing the other team to not be able to pass the puck off. And then someone like Podorowski is able to come in and just steal the puck. He's very valuable. And I did not see him play like that when he was with Utica. And I absolutely love watching him play. My eyes are always on him now because he's sneaky.
It's kind of interesting. Chicago obviously having a very good season so far, as we've, stated. And but their special teams is not, it's not like standout. It's not top 10. It's not even top 15. Hell, it's not even top 20. Like their power play is 22nd, 17.2 conversion rate. And then their penalty kill. Okay, their penalty kill is top 20. They're 19th in the league with 79.1. Elaine, how is this team so good, but their special teams is just kind of either meh or slightly below meh?
Well, so I tell people, because people have asked me the same thing about the Admirals, and I put them on the same playing field here, which is funny, probably because they played together last season. So I wonder how much of that is because of, the similarities. Yeah. It's not indicative to how they're playing. Those numbers are not. I mean, yeah, they're not scoring on the power play, but they're still drawing up meaningful plays. They're trying to get pucks on the net. They're doing their best. Some of the accuracy isn't the best. And their PK, they're not constantly giving up goals, but when they do, it's in the same game. So I think that skews the numbers a bit. And then when you play the same teams, I feel like that also skews the numbers. Like they play Milwaukee 14 times, and I don't know how many times they play Rockford, 7,000 or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But when you play those teams the same time, I don't think that special teams numbers can even be taken. It has to be taken with a grain of salt, because if you're playing against the number 2, well, they're not playing against the number 2 penalty kill. But an example is if you are a power play team that's struggling, but you're playing against one of the top kill teams, you're going to learn stuff. You're going to learn to get better, but also your numbers aren't going to be indicative of how you're playing.
That's very true. And, I think when Alex Lyon's signing announcement happened this offseason, I'm like, ooh, man, the Wolves are getting a solid free agent goaltender from the Philadelphia Flyers organization who, backstopped Lehigh Valley for a number of seasons and did very admirably. So I'm like, gosh, with a great defense in front of him, like Alex Lyon, I mean, who just, got a victory the other night in overtime when, Chicago went into Grand Rapids, 2-1 overtime victory. Podorowski with the game-winning goal, and Alex Lyon. I mean, they've really been riding Makaniemi
because he was up. Because
right,
Lyon was up. Right. Yeah,
that's right.
And Beck Warm just is. He's been kind of cold. And that's not supposed to be a joke.
But it was.
He's just kind of cool. Oh my gosh. Like now I'm just going to accidentally make jokes. He's just cool. He has cooled off this season.
He's a little coolie, eh?
Yeah, he's a little coolie, eh? You might as well start calling him Devin.
Devin Cooley, eh?
But he, I don't know what happened to him last season. He was very hot. I don't know. I need to find different words so that it doesn't sound like I'm making jokes.
It's just so easy. It's
I know. But
Beck
yes.
warm, more like Beck lukewarm.
Beck, yeah, you know what? Yes,
Sorry.
that's actually that's perfect though, because he's not like super cold. Like when he goes out and plays, he's like all right. Last season he was like NBA jams, boom shakalaka, I'm on fire. Like
where did this guy even come from?
Yeah, he was amazing. And I'm like, he's gonna play in the NHL. Mark my words, if anyone on any of these teams plays in the NHL next year, it's him. No, I'm wrong.
I mean, he's only gotten like one game and allowed 5 goals, so he hasn't really had a chance. I mean, with Makaniemi and Alex Lyon. So, but yeah, I mean, when you've got a goalie room where it's like you're spoiled for riches, I mean, someone's going to be the odd man out. Courtney knows that all too well in regards to Subban and Soderblom and why am I forgetting?
Delia? It's because he also disappeared too. I don't know.
Yes, he did.
Apparently he was on the COVID protocol and just came back this week. But he's been at the BMO, which is confusing. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's all confusing to me. It's
as the AHL is really good about, sarcasm warning, the injury reports are not readily available. So it's like, okay, well, is somebody injured? And you kind of just have to read the tea leaves sometimes, or maybe get an inside scoop that so-and-so has an upper body or a lower body injury.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys know why that is though?
The injury?
That why they keep those in the AHL so tight-lipped, because a lot of players are on NHL contracts, and it's really up to the NHL team to disclose what's wrong with their players. That's what I've heard from multiple teams.
Yeah. The NHL ruins everything again, you said, Courtney.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've heard from multiple teams. I mean,
the
Blackhawks last season, though, the Rockford Icehogs were always telling us who was injured. Yeah, like I was getting press release after press release about that, and I was like, "This is weird." I'm like, "Do other teams do this?"
Yeah, so and so went in for surgery today, and that's exactly what happened.
You remember that press release? I was like,
"You
were like, was he injured?" And I was like, "I don't think so."
They said they were going to be like super open with injuries and whatnot, the Blackhawks, and then that just kind of fell off a cliff at some point.
They should be more open about other things instead, but that's fine.
Anyways,
you're not wrong. Okay, Corral is back. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm gonna just lasso both Courtney and Elaine, and we'll get back to it. Let's talk keys. Let's we'll hit the home stretch here. Let's talk keys to the weekend. Courtney, I'll give you first dibs. What are 2 or 3 keys for Rockford to end up taking one or both? Miracle impending. Rockford Icehogs sweep the weekend.
Hope that Chicago waves the white flag before it happens.
forfeit the game before they take the ice.
But more realistically, they really need to work on their passing. And that's something that's not going to show up on the score sheet. But being at the game and watching them live, there's something wrong there. I don't know if it's the team chemistry so far. It's still early-ish, but getting to the point where you can't use that as an excuse anymore. But they're super weak on the puck when they're passing, and it just goes to nobody. So if they're not going to get the shots on goal to get goals, that is where I would start, was just work on your passing to your teammates. Other than that, they do need to shoot the puck a lot more and try to get in the way of more shots, get some blocks. I don't feel confident enough saying they will keep the puck out of their defensive zone this weekend against Chicago. So in order to limit the shots on goal, they got to put themselves in between them and the goalie.
Fair enough. All right, Elaine, Chicago Wolves, again, keys to the weekend, 2 or 3 for 1 game victorious or 2.
Just be the Chicago Wolves.
Oh, okay.
That's really it.
Can I revise my answer?
Yes. Does Rockford need to be the Chicago Wolves too?
Yes. In order for Rockford to win this weekend, they need to be the Chicago Wolves.
So what you're saying is the 2 teams need to trade jerseys for the weekend.
Or they could wear the same jersey like Cleveland and Syracuse did.
Right. Yeah. They both wore their whites last night, didn't they?
That wouldn't be confusing at all.
But seriously, what they could do to win. Because here's my thing though. New coaches, Rockford has a lot to prove. They can't get complacent. They can't look at Rockford and go like, oh, well, it's just Rockford. They probably won't because they've never really seen them play that way. But they have to play their best game because as we pointed out earlier, they haven't been really blown out. The Icehogs have not really been blown out. And so if you give them that chance to take off, they're going to hopefully take it.
I was going to say, where are you going with that?
What were you saying?
I just pictured someone tripping over the blue line coming out of the neutral zone. Yeah. Which we saw a lot last season. That's a real thing.
And this season.
I'm sorry, that's still happening. That's tough to write about.
They're elevated at the BMO. They've elevated the blue line.
That's tough to write about. But they have to, special teams, they have to find a way to get it on the board. Get on the board. On special teams, they have to do it. So, and it's not like they light up Rockford's power play or even penalty kills. They don't light them up. Not this season. So
if there were ever a weekend for them to turn around their special teams, it would be this one.
It would be this one. Yes. I like to see good spirited battles, so it makes it more fun to cover when one team's not completely dominating the other. Unless you have to be to work the next day and they go into a 9-round shootout. That's happened before. But yeah, I don't think Chicago necessarily is going to walk away with a win. I see one of these games going to overtime.
Hold that thought.
Sorry.
Hold that thought. Yeah, a little foreshadowing here. We're getting ready for our picks, but again, I will defer to Courtney and let her go first. Picks for the weekend. Friday. Well, did I say Friday and Saturday? Yes, I did. Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Yes.
They're at home on Friday. They're in Chicago on Saturday.
That's right. Thank you for refreshing me on that, even though I said it at the top of the segment. Courtney, who do you got? It has been a while, about half an hour or so.
Oh, geez. All right. So the last game they played was against Chicago, and they lost 4-1 at home.
Correct.
And from an Icehogs fan perspective, I would like to think that they would want to make up for that. But I don't think they will. So I think they lose at home, and then they go into Chicago and get the win on Saturday in the shootout.
Rockford on Saturday in a shootout. Okay.
I don't like it, but that's what came to my mind.
Hey, sometimes you got to go with your gut.
Yep.
Okay, Elaine. It's your turn now.
It's the same, except overtime.
Overtime. All
yeah.
right.
But like it won't really matter though, because like Chicago is still, the Wolves are still Chicago's team. So people will still be really happy no matter how it turns out for the Wolves. A+ marketing by the Wolves on that hashtag. By the way, we should do a separate episode where we talk about everything that the Chicago Wolves marketing and social media does correctly.
I'm sure Courtney would not want to be part of that episode. So.
I think that Courtney would love to, because she is very awesome about marketing stuff, and she has definitely noticed, much to her
chagrin.
Quite the difference between these two teams, both on and off the ice.
Well, if I may, I'm gonna give my picks now.
All right, let's hear
You better agree with us.
I don't actually.
Oh, rude. We come onto your show.
I mean, would you expect anything less than for me to be a contrarian? I mean, come on.
You usually agree with me, and we're usually super wrong.
Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of going the opposite direction here.
Are you going to say that Rockford's sweeping?
No, hell no. No, I am saying.
Don't say that.
Do you think I'm on drugs? Come on. No, Rockford's going to go home. Well, they're going to be at home again, but I think they win on Friday night, but then Chicago comes back and wins on Saturday. I also have Sean's pick as well, even though he's not here for this episode.
Ooh,
he preemptively, Sean, of course,
pick right here.
Sean's the A+ student going above and beyond in the classroom here. So Sean picked a Chicago sweep, so that's probably not a big surprise there.
No.
But the model, Sean's analytics model, he plugs all of the numbers in every Tuesday. Players active on the roster. It's amazing what all goes into this model. And the model's actually beating Sean and I this season for picks. Rise of the machines, indeed. The model chooses Chicago as a 52.6% favorite on Friday on the road, and at home, 55.1% favorite on Saturday. Considering that like really good is like 58-60%, like running away with it. Mm-hmm. I've only seen that a handful of times this year. So Rockford's got a shot. I think Rockford's got a shot on Friday. So that is it for the Rockford and Chicago segment. Ladies, thank you for coming on the program. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna take us into our well, actually, I'm not going to take us into our final segment because I'm going to give you ladies the floor. Courtney, tell the people where people can find your writing and your podcast work real quick.
All right. Well, you can find my writing over on Full Press, talking about the Icehogs. And if you want to check out the podcast, go over to FromCenterIce.com or on Twitter at VFCenterIcePod.
And Elaine, where can people find your writing? And I know that you have a podcast as well, and you are more than welcome to plug that here on the Calder Farmstead.
Well, you can find my writing at Full Press Hockey.
Hey,
I'm not sure if anyone has heard of it, but I'm kidding. If you're listening to this, you have.
True story.
You can also find my podcast, which is not about sports, but yet it seems to end up being about sports.
It's true.
It's called Graced by Rain. You can find it on all streaming platforms, pretty much all of them. I also have a Twitter account for that called Graced by Rain Pod, and it's just about finding the beauty in life. So sometimes I talk about anime, sometimes I talk about sports, sometimes I talk about Jesus, sometimes I find ways to combine all three of them. You just never know.
Wow.
So yeah, check it out, and be gentle with me if you hate it.
Yeah,
nobody's gonna hate it.
Don't hate. Appreciate. Yeah. You can also find Courtney on Twitter at Courtney Dagger. And you can also find Elaine on Twitter at I'm a Rain Dancer.
Yes.
RAIN. I'm a rain, not Ontario rain,
No.
but the precipitation rain. So All righty. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming on the program. We're going to take a break here. After the break, we're going to get to Kevin Lacy to talk about the San Jose Barracuda and their weekend set against the San Diego Gulls. If you're just here for Rockford and Chicago, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you can get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media, links to our social media, as well as links to our YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, pretty much every audio podcasting platform, and of course, the video platform here on YouTube. All those links can be found at our Linktree page. If you're watching, you can see it below. If not, I'll spell it out for you. Literally, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We've got some advertisements to run before we get to our last segment of the show, so we will be right back. All right, we've covered 3 weekend previews, 2 from the Eastern Conference, 1 from the Western Conference, and now it's time for our second from the Western Conference and our final weekend preview series for this episode number 63 of the Calder Farmstead. And my next guest, our 5th guest of this program, and our last guest of the program for this episode, longtime friend of the podcast, longtime friend of both Sean and myself. Again, Sean, not here, prior engagement for this episode and the next episode as well. But it is my pleasure from Teal Town USA to bring back on the show Kevin Lacy. Kevin, my friend, how are you, sir?
Hey there. So playing the role of Sean is me, Kevin Lacy, and I am here in Alaska, home of the Aces, and it doesn't really quite work the same way. I am in San Jose, California, though. That is not a lie. For our 5th year, even though it's our 7th year.
Wait a second.
5th year shirt. We need some new merchandise here, CC. But we are getting new merchandise next year, and so it will be nice to see. I'm hearing things, and I'm curious to see what those things are. But I know that we're getting, our new arena coming soon, well into development. I think they're actually ahead of schedule, which is amazing considering they started late because of the pandemic.
Wow.
But the new arena is looking fantastic so far. It's going to have a new pro shop, even though there is already a pro shop, because it's an attachment to our original ice facility here, where the Sharks practice. And I'm really looking forward to it. The Barracuda rolled out season ticket plans yesterday, and $50 deposits to get you a Sharks ticket and all this stuff. So yeah, it's exciting times right now. There's a lot of things going on. We got basically brand new management here in San Jose for the Barracuda, and I've been able to talk with Eric Grunfast, who's the president of business operations, and so he's given me a little bit of insight here as to what they want to do and really kind of overhaul the experience. Because for those of you here on who watch the Calder Farmstead regularly, how often do you hear about San Jose? I mean, when I'm not on. I'm just saying, and this is not throwing you under the bus. I'm just saying, how often do you hear about San Jose?
Well, we kind of plan that by design, because we want you to talk San Jose, and we want to do San Jose justice. We want to do every market justice, 31 teams. So when we do talk about San Jose, Kevin, it's because we want you on the show. And so we delay it because we want you on the program.
That is a very respectable answer, and I love how you skirted that topic. But the fact of the matter is, nobody's talking about the Barracuda, at least except me and you and a few other people here. But here, even in San Jose, the Barracuda really, the brand has, I won't say maybe struggle to get off its feet, but there's a lot more going into this team now here with the excitement of the arena. I think that the Sharks management really has quadrupled down on their investment with the Barracuda, because hey, if they're investing in this arena, maybe time to get some real infrastructure here. So they brought in Eric Grunfast to do business operations. There's a new ticket and sales manager here. Basically any position that any other AHL team has already had for years and years and years and years finally has been created for this team. So it's not just Nick Nolenberger and Daniel Bell running the show just on their own 4 combined feet. So, kudos to them. Kudos. I'm stealing that from you guys.
Yes.
From you and Sean. Kudos to them
kudos
for
to
putting in
them.
all that effort, because that's, can you imagine 2 people running an AHL team? I mean, I think it was really 3. And then you've got John Gustafson and Joe Will, the general manager and the president of the team. So I guess 4 people running the show, basically. So it's nice to see there's a team behind the team here. But let's actually talk about the team, because you don't want to hear me talk about business, right?
Hey, it's nice to get the other side of the coin. I mean, to talk about the off ice product, I think sometimes is just as relevant as talking about the on ice product. And to hear that the Barracuda, with the big migration of AHL teams to California in 2000, I want to say it was 2016, 15, right? Because we're 7 years now, like you said about your shirt. So,
the joke, of course, being this is the newest merchandise the Barracuda has, if you didn't catch it by now. So.
Right. Yeah. Just if that went over some folks' head for sure. But yeah, the fact that you've got, a glut of California teams, and, to point out one in particular that isn't doing so hot attendance wise, like just a little over 1,000, Stockton.
Yeah.
That's been a market that's been on the hot seat ever since about 2 or 3 years since they've moved.
And that's not a pun intended. They really have been
on the hot seat. Yeah. I wasn't going for a pun there. I know my reputation precedes me with the puns, but no, we're talking about Stockton. But yeah, the Barracuda getting that new arena, that is such a godsend, because of the fact, you're playing in this cavernous, arena in the SAP Center that's made for an NHL team. You can talk to Brian McCormick, former San Antonio Rampage announcer, about that, playing and announcing in the cavernous AT&T Center where the San Antonio, different San, Rampage played, and now getting the arena built in Henderson, another parallel there, new arena in Henderson, more apropos for the size of an AHL crowd that you want, small, but not too small, not ECHL small, but just big enough for an AHL crowd so that you can pack the barn, sell it out. I mean, the Eagles up in Loveland, I mean, it was a CHL barn first, but just over 5,000 fans, you get them all in there, you get them rowdy. It's a good atmosphere and a good environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the blueprints that have come out and the photos that have come out, it seems like it's going to be a pretty cool arena. Someone had mentioned to me it almost comes across like a smaller version of the ShoWare Center up in Kent, Washington, where the Seattle Thunderbirds play. And I've been in that arena.
Okay.
That's a gorgeous arena, and I am getting robocalled if you can't hear that right now. Either that or someone from the Barracuda is calling me and saying, you want to buy new season tickets? Because we've got plans here today. But
how are they listening to the podcast? We're pre-recording this, and they already got the scoop that you're divulging insider secrets.
Exactly.
What the hell's happening?
Yeah, but I mean, it's great to see, because you mentioned the SAP Center is cavernous. I mean, it's built for nearly 18,000 fans, and for this team who has struggled to bring in attendance on most, not all nights, we actually have had a couple of legitimate sellouts of 6,000 or more fans. Sellouts by AHL, by the Barracuda standards, because 6,000, I believe it's 6,123 is officially a sellout for the Barracuda. Essentially meaning seats in the upper deck actually open up.
Right.
So with this new 4,200 seat arena, a little bit south of the SAP Center, it's the sky's the limit. And if they decide to switch things up, I assume there's still going to be the Barracuda next year. I don't know. I have no intel on that, but I mean, I do know that with the reinvigoration of the brand, who knows, maybe they go a different direction. Who knows? But speaking of different directions, Sean's got that orange jersey.
The one that's right below you.
You're
in
right.
Our yep, just right there.
There we go.
There we go.
And the Barracuda have won their orange jerseys almost every home game this year, which the Barracuda had only won the orange, which is the most popular jersey, mind you. The orange jerseys maybe twice over the last 3 combined seasons or something like that. So me, who's usually rocking the orange jersey at SAP Center, and Sean, who wears it on the show,
right?
I love it. I love it. Make use of them. You got them made. CCM made them for you. Sure, they have the wrong shoulder patch, but they still made them for you. So rock them. I love it.
So the Sharks were almost called the Blades. You probably know this, being I was going to say,
and their former IHL team was the Blades out in Kansas City.
That's right. Yes, I didn't know that the Sharks had the affiliation with Kansas City. So
they still do, because Evgeny Nabokov, the Sharks goalie coach, played for the Kansas City Blades very briefly, but it happened.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like Tommy Salo from the Islanders, Ziggy Palffy, playing with the Utah Grizzlies back in the day.
Wow.
Back when they had that. Yes. So pulling up some 90s names here, but I digress. So those orange jerseys, I mean, maybe you rebrand to the San Jose Blades. I mean, and kind of, because that orange, I just recently purchased a puck for the Kansas City Blades, and that orange, like you said, that previous tie-in with Kansas City, I mean, it's a stretch, but
I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard anything to signify that, but I think that should be on their radar. I don't mind that idea. So, if it happens, you heard it here first. I mean,
CC throwing out random conjecture about, hey, San Jose Blades, there's a history with the name, old affiliation that I didn't know about when I mentioned it, but
Well, you never know. They could be the San Jose Seals, which is what I originally thought the team would be based off the Oakland Seals and the California Golden Seals. I don't think they'll be the Golden Seals, because that's golden teams in San Jose just don't get along so well. But even though we are the Golden State, but
but that's more, I guess, San Francisco's Golden State Warriors, that kind of thing.
No, I mean, I just spitballing here on this show. I hadn't even thought about it, but maybe if they were to rebrand San Jose Seals, I mean, big vibrant jerseys. Just keep the orange. I love the orange.
Yes. And hell, if they're wearing them more, maybe that's a good harbinger that that they'll keep that color concept going on and into next season. But we'll see.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. So from the off ice product, let's go to the on ice product. So San Jose currently 4th out of 9 teams in the bloated Pacific Division currently. 5-4-1, 11 points in 10 games, 0.550 points percentage, and they're on a 2-game win streak, so that's a good sign too. But they are playing San Diego 4 games in a row, so they are going to be hosting San Diego the 19th and the 20th this coming weekend, and then they're heading to San Diego the 24th and the 26th, and that begins what looks like a 6-game road trip.
Yes.
Between San Diego, Ontario, Abbotsford, and Stockton. It sounds longer than it is because you've only got 1 game against Ontario and 1 game against Stockton.
Still, you're going Southern California, up to Canada, back to Northern California, and then to the Bay Area. So it is a little bit of a travel situation there, which you don't necessarily see in the Pacific Division that often, but it's starting to become more prominent, with Henderson coming in, Palm Springs coming in. Colorado's still in the Pacific for now, and Abbotsford so I'd still be curious to see how much Stockton sticks around. I mean, I've been saying for 2 years, this has to be their last year. And they're still in Stockton. So,
and the rumors of them going to Colorado Springs because the World Arena, where Colorado College was playing. I think it's a 8,000 seat arena. Colorado College built a on-campus hockey stadium. And so about 3,000 seats, 4,000 seats, a nice intimate little barn. And so the World Arena in Colorado Springs is opened up. And so the rumors were, okay, Stockton's going to move there, but the pandemic kind of quashed that. Patrick Williams put that rumor to bed because, there'd been rumblings, but because of the pandemic, Calgary's like, well, we're moving Stockton up to Calgary for a season. So yeah, that threw a wrench in it, and they're just back in Stockton for this year. But don't be surprised if they're fielding other, markets.
Right.
Because they're not happy with the facilities there in Stockton. And so I doubt that's changed since the pandemic has happened.
I doubt it. But right now, 9 teams in the Pacific, and the Barracuda sitting in the middle. I think the Barracuda are sitting comfortably because this is a pretty tough division. We saw it last year. This division had the most number of games out of any of them, which is the first time they've ever been able to say that
right
in history. And next year, of course, moving up to a standardized 72 game season. But I think the Barracuda have to be pretty happy with how they've played so far this season. I know I am. I mean, on most nights they have been competitive. I think there's been one blowout game against us. And then there was the barn burner 7-5 game against Texas the next day. But overall, I think Roy Sommer has to be pretty happy with the group, a group that has had to overcome. We've talked the last 2 years about the amount of roster fluctuation that Roy Sommer has had to go through. And the Sharks had a major COVID-19 situation that also bled into the Barracuda roster. And then on top of that, having the Sharks calling up four top defensemen from the Barracuda just to be able to field an NHL team amongst some forwards. It's, the Barracuda had 30 penned guys for the roster this year. And suddenly here, 2 guys get called up from the Orlando Solar Bears to fill in, who immediately have to go in COVID-19 protocol because they failed their tests. And now you're looking at who can we pull from Utah and who can we pull from Fort Wayne and stuff. And Joey Garefa, you're a defenseman now. Zach Gallant, you're a defenseman. Well, no, we got this guy on the last second on a tryout, so you don't have to be. I mean, Barracuda nearly had to dress 2 forwards on defense with 2 ECHL tryouts.
Oh my gosh.
So I think all things considered, it's pretty impressive that the Barracuda are sitting in 4th place right now in the division with a winning record.
It very well could have been an Ottawa-Belleville situation. Belleville, the basement dwellers in the North Division, 7th place out of 7 teams. But yeah, I mean, hearing what San Jose went through, I'm like, wow, it's Ottawa, Belleville, West. It was just with the COVID cases and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh,
we did it first. Wait, are we happy about that? Sure, but
I guess it just didn't get much press, which is ironic since I'm in Denver. But with our NHL editor, our NHL lead writer for Full Press being out of Ottawa, more of a finger on the pulse, I guess.
Yeah,
with Murray covering that. But apparently, I need to text you more and be like, "Hey, what's going on in San Jose?"
I said, we're not on everyone's radar, but that's why I'm here to talk about the team, and I can talk endlessly.
Excellent. Good. Well, hey, yeah, San Jose, their PDO, shooting percentage plus save percentage equals PDO. And you want to be as close as to 100 as possible because, that means you're even keel. It means you're not getting too lucky over 100, or it means you're not having bad puck luck under 100. Well, San Jose, if you look at the numbers, the fact is Sean's handy dandy PDO model here. San Jose is a 97.06 PDO, so they could stand to get some better puck luck, especially on the save percentage side, because their average save percentage is 86.833. And that's going to happen when you've started all rookie goaltenders this year.
Yeah. Rookies,
quote unquote,
with an asterisk, because Melnichuk did get in, I think it was 12 games last year, and Sawchenko got a number of starts when he basically stole the number one position 2 years ago, but then last year only got in a couple of games because the Barracuda carried 4 goalies for most of the year.
Right.
But with Sawchenko now off of COVID-19 protocol and getting the start on Wednesday night in a comeback win, a really inspiring comeback win against the Bakersfield Condors, who have had our number for years. Hopefully the goaltending will improve. I don't think Alexei Melnichuk has had a bad season though, CC. I know last season I talked about how I think he was very overhyped. I saw high-end talent out of him, but I did not see anything remotely consistent about his play. I think with the off season to spend with Evgeny Nabokov and Danny Sabarin, and to kind of get familiarized more with the North American game, he looks like a more stable goalie. Obviously, he still has things to work on here. Otherwise, he'd be in the NHL right now. But overall, the save percentage is not good, but the game, he's been lit up a couple times, and in the games that he's been lit up in, it hasn't been his fault. It's been porous defense, particularly the forwards need to do a better job, I think, of helping out the defense and being able to manage the puck a little bit more. But when you've got 3 to 4 ECHL players on tryout and a forward, and Garefa's still with the team now, kind of doing a mix of forward and defense, but McNally and Parcells and McDonald and then Rauhauser, who never played a game because he failed his test. They're off. They're out. I don't see them coming back anytime soon, to be quite honest. Sorry for those family members watching the podcast, but I try to speak the truth. It's nice to see the Barracuda get some true organizational players back on the back end, and I think Alexei Melnichuk would really appreciate that as well. So.
Yeah, and speaking of, hang on a sec. Why did I lose him? I don't understand. I'm looking at the roster.
Melnichuk.
No. Shellman.
Oh, Yoel Shellman.
We're talking forwards, and I'm like, why am I having this brain fart? Like, yeah, Joel Shellman. We were going to talk about it. You mentioned forwards, and in the game against Abbotsford on Sunday, Shellman took a hit in the crease. So Sunday, November 14th at Abbotsford, Shellman took a hit in the crease by Vincent Arsenault, and it was a scary hit because Definitely. Shellman ended up getting taken off the ice on a stretcher. He was out cold as soon as he got hit. He fell to the ice, just lifeless, completely motionless, and it was scary. But looking back at the clip, I watched it probably 15 or 20 times to see if there was any intent or if there was any, charging or running him or any ill intention on Arsenault's part. And despite his, some of his questionable past behavior, it just looked like a bang, bang hit. And in my opinion, it wasn't a dirty hit. It was just like Shellman was looking down at the puck in the crease and Arsenault was coming through and he made a play on the puck and his left shoulder just hit him right in the head at the unfortunate, perfect, quote unquote, not perfect, but just at the inopportune time to where he was injured.
Yeah, this one's hard. I mean, it was obviously hard to watch to begin with, and especially considering that Yoel Shellman's family is now in town. It was already a planned trip for them to come into town. I believe they arrived. This game was not in San Jose; it was in Abbotsford.
Right.
But his at least one, if not both of his parents, I believe, came into San Jose that same day, and it was also Swedish or maybe it's Scandinavian Father's Day that day, and Yoel Shellman is a brand new father from my understanding. So it's just a hard situation all around on that. But yeah, Yoel Shellman, there's no medical update that we have other than he was conscious and was able to fly back with the team, but we'd have no further update on that. I imagine he's going to be out a little while. But scary hit. I'm with you, Cece. I didn't really see much to warrant it being a game misconduct, a suspension. I don't believe he was suspended. Did not see any supplemental.
I think they probably reviewed it and said no. And
yeah,
rightfully
and
so.
For me, that's a situation of Chelman's looking down, trying to find the puck. Vincent Arsenault does not go all that far out of where he was to go to make the hit. And Arsenault has the right also to go try and get the puck. Like that's called defense. And so Arsenault comes in much bigger forward than Yoel Chelman is. He comes in, throws the hit. To me, the shoulder to the head, hard to see because I did not see one close-up replay of it. I only saw the far view.
Right.
But a shoulder to the head seems more circumstantial than anything. It did not look malicious to me. You've said that Arsenault has had a checkered past previously. But in this situation, I think it's hockey play gone bad. And the Barracuda were able to use, even though they did not score on that 5-minute power play they were able to use that momentum to get back into that game and ultimately won in the 5th round a shootout on a very nice Sasha Chmielewski goal. So yeah, all the best to the Chelman family, and hopefully he is back soon. But yeah, Chelman's an alternate captain for this team and is relied on to be one of the top players with this team this year, because last year he was outstanding. We only saw him a little bit because with taxi squads and everything, he didn't see a lot of ice time, and a lot of it was inconsistent with the Barracuda. But when he was here, he was dynamite. And so this season has been a little bit lesser, which has allowed a couple of the younger guys to kind of take steps forward who need to. But Chelman is still a top player on this team, and hopefully he comes back soon.
Yeah, definitely hoping that he gets well soon. And the fact that he flew back with the team, like he didn't have to stay in the Abbotsford area, that was an encouraging sign. I made sure to look for that news and be like, okay, is he okay? Is he going to be all right? And he was well enough to fly back with the team, so that's good.
Yeah.
But let's pivot a little bit, and we'll kind of lead into keys to the weekend for San Jose and then our picks. But before that, I did want to talk about the defense a little bit. You know, looking at Sean's wonderful analytics work here, goaltending, he judges goaltenders off of something called defensive environment. And like the good goaltenders have a defensive environment around 100. Like it means that obviously the defense is supporting the goaltending. That is, you know, the defense supports their goalie. You got a good defense in front of the goaltender. Alexei Melnichuk, he's the only qualified goaltender for San Jose. His defensive environment, 40.87. Yikes. Now I know that San Jose has kind of a strange fetish of acquiring former Colorado Eagles, you know, with Nick Malash and Mark Alt now. So I'm just, of course I'm kidding in jest, but but in all seriousness, like I know with the COVID protocols and everything, you know, that, like you said, the defensive core with the ECHL and everything like that. Is that the only reason that the defense hasn't been up to snuff in front of not just Melnichuk, but Sawchenko as well?
Yeah, I think that this team's still trying to work out how to become familiarized with themselves. Now, the D pairs that basically Roy Sommer likes to hold on to D pairs as long as possible and allow them to gel together. And especially in the case of like Captain Jacob Megna and Ryan Merkley. Ryan Merkley has not seen the ice pretty much with anyone else his whole pro career so far, which is this calendar year. But even in Ryan Merkley's call up to San Jose to fill in, it was him and Megna together, and I think that was by design. So they played NHL minutes together, just as they've played all AHL minutes together. So there is familiarity there. Ryan Merkley is a guy I want to come back to, actually, because he's a very polarizing prospect, but
Okay.
got some good info about him this year versus a lot of bad info about him last year. So, but you got Nick Meloche, who I think was the best defenseman for this team last year and really gained a lot of ground and got some NHL games. Did not look out of place in his NHL call-up here this year, but he is back with the team. And his defensive partner is normally Brinson Pashnuk, who has been out all season due to a couple of different things. He apparently has a lower body injury right now, stemming off of coming back maybe too early off of celiac disease that he was diagnosed with during the off season. So Brinson Pashnuk I think he lost like 24 pounds or something like that. And was trying to fast track missing a lot of training camp. And I believe he got hurt that way. So Meloche has been kind of the one guy with a rotating defense partner. And then you've got Mark Alt as well. And for some weird reason, because I don't want to look at my spreadsheet right now, I can't escape who he's been playing with. But Mark Alt is a very stabilizing force for this team. But I do think he's looked a little bit inconsistent, a little bit less consistent than I expected him to. But he hasn't been bad. But just collectively, they haven't been able to put it all together yet in front of the goaltending. And again, I think a lot of it has been the forwards being unable to control the puck long enough for the defense to get a break. We saw it with the Sharks over the last couple of years, where it wasn't necessarily on paper that the defense core is bad, which you would hope that a defense core of Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson and Mark-Edward Vlasic would not be bad. But when you spend 53 minutes a night in your own end, there's only so much they can take. And I think a lot of that has been what's befallen the Barracuda defensively so far this year. But nevertheless, winning team, 4th place in the division. I would like to talk about some positives.
Well, hey, they've got the 3rd ranked power play in the league. You know, that's a pretty good stat. I mean, 23.9%, 11 goals on 46 chances.
Where are we at with the penalty kill, though?
You said positives. I'm not bringing up the penalty kill because I know that's not a positive.
Yeah.
But since you brought it up,
just kind of segging from one thing to the next. I mean, the Barracuda got to stay out of the box. I mean, I know that Sean is not the biggest fan of Jeff VL. But Jeff VL is not here. He's been out injured again all season. And the Barracuda have still not been able to stay out of the penalty box, and their penalty killing has been very, very poor so far this year. So luckily on the opposite end, that power play is carrying things forward. I'll let you continue about the good graces of the power play now, but I had to throw in that penalty kill situation there.
I mean, just for a middle of the pack. I mean, we predicted it before the season that the Pacific Division, the middle was just going to be just super close. And, I don't know if we predicted Stockton to be as good as they are this early in the season so far. Ontario, we kind of expected it because, the young guys, the Black and Silver Bandits, as we so fondly dubbed them last year, they are coming into their own. Like last season, in a lot of ways, was screwy for a lot of people. And we had a lot of upside on these young guys in Ontario. And, it didn't come to fruition, but it definitely did this year. And San Jose's hanging in there. I mean, that power play, to have a solid power play in the Wild Wild West that is the Pacific Division, I think that can help put you over and keep you in that upper portion of the middle of the standings there in the Pacific Division.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm trying to pull up the quick splits here. I don't know if I can do it quickly enough, but as far as I'm aware, most of the Barracuda power play goals have been on the road too, on top of it. So to be able to come up with that, because I think the Barracuda may only have 3 power play goals at home, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Basically,
yeah.
I know that because of our Power Pour promotion where it's half off beers for 15 minutes after a power play goal. And I believe we've only been able to do that 3 times at home this season. So
It says that the San Jose is second in the league at home on the power play, 8 goals on 23. I mean, but
that's what I get for spitballing.
but they are 23rd on the road, 3 for 20. Yeah, 3 goals on 23 chances.
So when I said the road, I meant home. Or the other way around. Yeah,
yeah, it's easy to get confused, you know? Yeah. Well, hey, we are approaching 35 minutes here, so yeah, so we're gonna head to the Keys for San Jose.
Sure.
Now, San Diego, basement dwelling, off to a rough start so far, 3-6-1, but they've gotten 3 points out of 6 in their last 3 games. So, coming into San Jose, what are 3 keys, or 2 or 3 keys for San Jose to pick up a win or 2 wins against the Gulls this weekend?
Key number 1, I think, started with Wednesday night's game, and that's getting Joachim Blichfeld going. Joachim Blichfeld, I think, has been a huge disappointment for the team this season, and I'd throw John Leonard in that mix as well. And these are probably the 2 most talented wings on this team, at least offensively. And probably just all around in general, because they both have wheels, they both have great shots, they both have playmaking ability. Joachim Blichfeld scored twice, his second and third goals of the season on Wednesday, and my understanding is he jokingly told Nick Nollenberger, who's the play-by-play voice of the Barracuda, that if he didn't score on Wednesday, that he was just going to retire. Not truthfully, obviously, but
Sure.
Joachim Blichfeld's been that kind of invisible. I haven't noticed him doing the little things to help himself earn goals. So he did more of that on Wednesday night. He got the 2 goals. Hopefully that's the monkey off his back and he can continue forward with that, because I believe he's the 3rd leading scorer on the team statistically. But I think overall he needs to show more in his game. And that's why even with all the COVID-19 call-ups, he still was not one of those players when he probably should have been, because he needs to do more. And I mentioned John Leonard. He needs to be more effective out there as well. So key number 1 is get the guys who are supposed to be the top guys going. I'd say key number 2 would be keep who has been thriving, and that's Noah Gregor and Scott Reedy. Those 2 guys have been easily the 2 best players on the team this season. Scott Reedy, a little bit less of a consistent player as Gregor, but still Scott Reedy has put up points in 7 out of his 10 games, I believe, this season, and is right there in the thick of the offense. Noah Gregor is the offense. Noah Gregor has by far been dominating in the AHL so far this season. He's well over a point per game average, and that's despite having to miss time due to COVID-19 and then not being able to cross the Canadian border because he was in his quarantine period. So Noah Gregor, despite the kind of stutter starts, has been phenomenal for him. I think the third and final key I want to mention in the series is not allowing the San Diego goals an inch, because right now San Diego has been struggling. And for me personally, because I'm talking about the Barracuda, I'm looking at former Barracuda guys like Danny O'Regan, who put up 11 points in 8 games last season against the Barracuda for Henderson. So far, he's got a -8, which is amazing considering he's a top penalty killer and a very good defensive forward for this team, but he's -8. Buddy Robinson, big, tall, lanky player who played in the NHL last year, was one of my favorite all-time Barracuda players. He's got 1 point so far and another -8 for the goals. And then Trevor Carrick, who's a defenseman that I like, he was traded to Anaheim last year and has been playing for the Gulls, and he's got a respectable 4 points for them so far this season. But it's kind of these stories up and down the San Diego lineup. The offense is not there. The defense doesn't seem to be there. The goaltending stats are atrocious so far between Eriksson Ek and Lucas Dostal. And I think the Barracuda need to say, look at last game. Look at the Wednesday night game. They stuck to the game plan. When Bakersfield went up 3-1, they stuck to the game plan, and the game plan worked, and they were successful. And it was a very inspiring win. They need to stay on the gas now. Don't let San Diego get a couple of small wins in the beginning or middle of the game, and certainly not the end of the game. Don't give them hope. Let them continue to suffer, and the Barracuda will come out with 4 points here this weekend.
Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and then a quick turnaround. Saturday matinee at 1:15 p.m. in San Jose there at the SAP Center. So, with all that said, Kevin, you get first dibs since you are the guest. What are your picks for the weekend?
The Barracuda will win on Friday night tonight. Are we doing scores, or are we just saying who's winning here?
Oh, we'll just say who's winning. Yeah, score seems a little bit on the nose.
Well, the Barracuda will come out with a good victory on Friday night, I think. And then Saturday night, I think the Barracuda will also be the better team, but it'll be an overtime loss. So I think we get 3 out of 4 points.
OTL. Okay. For me, I actually picked the same. I picked San Jose on Friday and San Diego on Saturday, and but I did not pick overtime. So you got that. If they go OT, then you've got that little tick above me. So Sean, being the A+ student of the game that he is, also chimed in on the outline here that I'm reading from. So he said, whatever game Dostal starts is my choice for San Diego. I'll take San Jose in the other. He does that every now and again.
I think that's fair because of what I saw of San Diego last season. Dostal was easily the better goalie. I was not impressed with Eriksson Ek. Even though Eriksson Ek won a game or two against us, I did not think he was good in those games at all for San Diego. So I like Sean's choices there.
Yeah. He's,
I don't love them because it's not San Jose winning both games, but
of course. But as a unbiased hockey mind, you can appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, last but not least, Sean also has a model for individual games as well. And he tinkers with the rosters every Tuesday. And it spits out the numbers, and the model is beating Sean and I so far this year in our picks. So War of the Machines. Yeah, the model is the T1000. San Diego is the 52.1% favorite in both games. So we'll see how that works out. But
hopefully the Barracuda stay healthy through this weekend, though, because with Shaman out, McGrew, I mentioned Pashnuk, McGrew is out, Ibrahimov is out. I know there's another player who's out as well. So luckily we've got that deep roster.
Yeah, thankfully you signed, San Jose signed, 50 forwards in the offseason. So I may be using a little bit of hyperbole there, but maybe over-exaggerating a little bit. But
Joe
Kevin,
Will earns his paycheck as general manager. That's for certain.
Does he ever? Gosh. Well, hey, Kevin, we get to participate together in the outro for the show. So that's it for the show. Look at the joy on your face. I love that. That is it for the show. Thank you for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and wrestling programs. I know you like that, Kevin. FullPressWrestling.com.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Had to get him going on that.
Yes. Happy belated birthday to the Macho Man Randy Savage. He would have been 69. So last episode I brought that up and Sean's like, okay, moving on. So, hey, you just click podcast in the upper right-hand portion of the website and enjoy. And if you are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, of course, please subscribe. You can get episodes in a timely fashion that way. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Audible or Amazon, Please, Audible on Amazon, rather. Sorry. Please rate and review the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment on what you thought of the episode, and please subscribe. We are inching up closer to 100 prescribers, 100 subscribers. We're about at 87. So when you get to 100, your YouTube channel name or your YouTube URL, easy for me to say, becomes the name of your podcast, not just a bunch of random numbers and letters. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
You mean it's not youtube.com/Hobgox?
Hobgox. Scrabble. Not yet, but we may change it to that. Well, we probably won't. Who am I kidding? But hey, you can also follow us on social media, at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on Linktree. It's scrolling below if you're watching on YouTube. Let me spell it out for you if you're just listening. linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. And big thanks to Adrian Drake, not Drank. Gosh, I'm having a rough time on this outro. Adrian Drake, who made our theme music, Rock On. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION. Kevin, where can the people find you at?
Right now, primarily on Twitter. This is my first podcast of the season. I've been really tied up with things, so really happy to get on the show with you and talk. I mean, again, you mentioned we've been talking for quite a while, and I did warn the listeners earlier that I can talk for days about this team. So
yes, he can.
You've been warned for the next time I'm on. But I am at Kevin Lacy 22, again, on most social media platforms. And eventually I will be back on Teal Town USA at some point this season. That's tealtownusa.com and Teal Town USA on pretty much everything. So go check them out. Covering Sharks games like the game last night against the Blues. Not so good. But anyway, glad to be on.
I don't know about you, but he's feeling at Kevin Lacy 22. Little Taylor Swift reference there because she just dropped a redone new album that actually had that song on it. So timely reference. Don't mind me. Anyway, I'm CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CC Hawk. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. And back at my personal account, I mainly tweet about hockey. Big surprise there, but I'm also a pro wrestling fan, so I do chime in every now and again on that. Big music guy, tweet out about movies or, stuff and things. I don't know, memes. Yeah. If it keeps me interested, hopefully it's not going to be bullshit for you. So I will say that. And with that will do it for episode number 63 of the Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Corey Swartz talking about the Hershey Bears, Luke Garrison talking about the Toronto Marlies, Courtney Bauman with the Rockford Icehogs, Elaine Shircliff with the Chicago Wolves, and Kevin Lacy, last but definitely not least, with the San Jose Barracuda. So for Kevin and all the other guests that I just mentioned, my name, once again, is CC Hockley. Thanks for tuning into the show. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.